Has everyone joined the meeting? Mrs. Hammers, do you have everyone for having joined the meeting? Okay. Good evening, everybody. We have quite a crowd tonight. Thank you for coming. Since we have so many people in the room, I just want to remind everyone that we have a cell phone free zone, so please make sure you keep your cell phones on silent during the meeting. And also, I briefly wanted to discuss the process that we're going to use tonight for two budget-related items. If you haven't filled out your pink slip, if you'd like to speak, please do so and give it to Mrs. Hammers. I will call on you at the time that we get to that on the agenda. And we have a group from Disability to Possibility that we will call on a little bit earlier in the meeting before we get to that part of the discussion, instead of making you wait until the end for the public comment section. So if you would, I guess we're going to start with salutes, and I'll go from my right tonight and start with Mr. Stoudemire. Mrs. Funderburg.
I was able to attend the Girls City Basketball Tournament, so congratulations to all the teams. I went on the final night. Also, congratulations to the Springfield Public Schools Foundation on their 31st annual dinner. We celebrated our district Golden Apple teachers. Also, congratulations to the foundation for another successful evening of fundraising. All that money goes right back to teachers and students here in the district. So, thank you.
Mrs. Johnson?
Well, you know, my standard, and I hope my friend who talked about me about having sports eye, I love basketball, so I've seen some great basketball in the last 2 weeks, and I want to congratulate all the players and all the teams in Springfield because they're still doing a fantastic job. And it's two things that I'd like to mention. I have two invites. And I assume this is open to the public because it's a public school. IO School is having their second International Baccalaureate Primary Years exhibition on this Thursday, February the 7th, from 3 to 5 p.m. So I am definitely going to try to attend that. And Thursday's going to be this is Black History Month. I believe that every day is Black History Day, but this is Black History Month as officially recognized in these United States. And on this Thursday, the U.S. Poet Laureate, Natasha Trethewey, is going to be at the Abraham Lincoln Museum in the Union Theater. And it's free. It's open to the public. You do need to register. And you can go to www.presidentlincoln.org. But I think that it will be exciting to hear her do poetry readings and discuss books that she has written. She is the United States Poet Laureate. And I think this is going to be a great recognition. And if you pay attention to the Abraham Lincoln Library site, they are having different programs throughout the month, and they always have great educational programs. So we should all encourage our kids and take our children to participate in events at the library. And the events that are usually held in the evening are usually free and open to the public. And one more thing. I just signed a petition from the IELTS students on demining, and that's to get rid of or to say that we shouldn't have landmines. And they had a wonderful display out there. I imagine some of those children may still be here. And they had a petition to sign. So if you're still here, there they are right there. Stand up, young men. They stopped me. you can see them later on in the board meeting, and maybe you want to sign their petition.
Mr. Luke.
Well, since we're in the house, I do want to mention the Southeast High School girls and boys basketball both winning city this year, so congratulations to both of those teams. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Mrs. Mueller?
Thank you, Mrs. White. I appreciated the opportunity to participate in the Springfield School Foundation event. We're all kind of probably thinking about preparing our tax forms and looking at that line about charitable contributions. And I'd encourage everybody to think in this next year to come, consider the foundation as one of your charitable donations. I also wanted to thank Librarian Taverner and Reader Bird for allowing me to sit in their library sessions at Du Bois and Adams schools. Watching just one morning how 2 of our 4 elementary school librarians touched so many children so well. We've got to recognize the huge return on investment we are getting from 4 highly qualified educational librarians who serve at least 1,000 children each weekly. That's quite a return on investment.
Salute all the parents who've come out so far to the schools that have already had their fiscal accountability and community involvement meetings, which is a long business of syllables, but it's a very important meeting for each of our schools. And unfortunately, the ones I've been at haven't had much parent involvement. So for the schools who have not had their meetings yet, I would really recommend that you and people that you know attend these so you can be involved right at the level of your schools and deciding how it's going to connect out. Yield back.
And Mr. Campbell, I'm sorry, I have this bad habit of forgetting you. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's quite all right. Thank you. I don't actually have any salutes today, so.
Oh, okay.
But thank you.
I have a few salutes. First, I see Principal Fox out there. I had a lovely visit at Pleasant Hill last week. Thank you so much for the tour. I was very interested in the history of your building. I think having a great book in your foyer from 1908 is pretty amazing. I also enjoyed the foundation dinner. I think the Springfield Public School Foundation is the only organization that fundraises and puts 100% of their money back in our school district, and I thank them very much for that. And my third salute, I'm sort of going to salute the reporter, Ms. Molly Beck, and Iola Jackson from Rachel Lindsay and MacArthur Park Apartments. I know there was an article in the SGR the other day about the partnership that the MacArthur Park Apartments are trying to work on with Iola Jackson and Rachel Lindsay School to provide a library there once a week on a Wednesday afternoon. And I just commend them for that. I think that a lot of our schools work very hard toward making building relationships among students and the parents in their communities. And thank you, Ms. Jackson and Rachel Lindsay School and MacArthur Park Apartments for working on that. And thank you, Ms. Beck, for putting in some happy news in the paper. Thank you. Next, student business, Mr. Camel.
All right, thank you. So I've been working on the project that I've taken up, which is the testing incentives for the state standardized testing for high schoolers. So far I've met with the student council at Springfield High School, and I was supposed to meet with Southeast last week, but they had to reschedule, so I'll be meeting with them this Wednesday. Then Mr. Metzke, I believe it's pronounced, from Lanphier, has agreed to discuss possible options with his council. I've also been working with Mr. Grossen to find some elusive results from a survey they conducted during his tenure as an administrator at Springfield High School. And I emailed principals of various area schools from other districts to see what they're doing to incentivize their students, sort of to get a feel for what's going on in the community around Springfield as well. So hopefully I should have some sort of proposal for the board by either the next meeting or the one following in early March. So,
Wonderful, that would be just right on time.
yeah, exactly.
Do you know what's the date, what's the first date of, the first week of April, maybe, this year?
Yeah, I know it's April, but I'm not sure quite when.
Thank you. Dr. Milton, did you want to announce the disability?
Yes, on March 14th at 6:30 p.m. here at Southeast High School, the Springfield Parents for Public Schools will be hosting a board candidate forum at 6:30 here at Southeast, and we encourage everyone to come out to hear what our prospective board members have to say about their commitment to Springfield Public Schools. So March 14th at 6:30. And I'm still battling my cold, so please excuse my voice tonight.
Madam President,
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know the date right offhand, I don't remember right offhand, but I know the Springfield Branch NAACP is also having a candidates forum. And so everybody can be watching for that. It seems like there's one more, I don't remember what it is, but I know the Springfield Branch NAACP will have one at, probably at Zion Baptist Church.
I will call now on the group from disabilities to possibilities.
Good evening, everybody. I'm not here to ask you for anything or to complain about anything, so I will be a welcome refreshment for the night. I'm here to actually talk about the Disability to Possibility Conference. This is our 5th year to do this, and I just want to invite everybody to come to it. It's going to be held this year, February 23rd at Springfield High School from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. This is a free conference on issues that impact parents and people that love children who have disabilities. We're going to have some really good speakers this year, as we always do. We're very grateful to the Springfield Schools for sponsoring this. Dr. Milton and Lou, all the work that you put into supporting us in doing this. We offer free child care and free lunch. Our guest speaker, our keynote speaker this year is Michael Gaines, and he's an extraordinary person who, as a sophomore in high school, he discovered that he had dyslexia. He was reading at a 4th grade level. He went on to get a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and a master's degree in public administration. He works for the Department of Public Health and works on behalf of people with HIV in prisons. He's done a lot. Outside of what he's done in his own personal life, he's done a lot for the city of Springfield. He serves on the executive board for the NAACP. He served on the Urban League, the Boys and Girls Club. And so we're looking very forward to him talking to people and telling them how he's overcome these obstacles in his life. And we also, we have cards about this that Marguerite is going to put out on the table so you can pick them up if you like one. I think the board already has one. Also, you could register online. We're now on the Springfield website online. We're going to have door prizes. The big door prize is an iPad mini, but you do have to be present to win, so come and join us and pass this along, because it's really important that parents come and hear about issues that are really impacting their life. We're going to have somebody from the autism program come and present. We're also going to have somebody from the Mosaic Project come and present. Somebody will come and talk on ADHD, and then somebody on IEPs and transition. And so if you know parents who have children with disabilities, I'm a parent of a young man, I'm an adult now with a disability, you don't even know what to ask sometimes. So all the support we can give these parents helps both the parent and helps you guys as in the school system too. So thank you for letting me go early. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this.
If you could just say the phrase.
What?
I just want to publicly acknowledge this group of individuals, parents, students with disabilities. You know, I remember about 6 years ago when this was just a vision. We talked about how can we begin to have an initiative that's going to really invite parents to talk about the importance of advocating for our children with disabilities. And this group not only took that vision and brought it to fruition, but I think that they are doing a great job exemplifying sustainability. I just want to publicly thank you guys, because I can't think of any other parent-led symposiums or conferences in the United States of America, and you guys do a great job. You have an opportunity to not only impact the lives of students and parents in our school system, but some of the outlining districts really come and really glean from the expertise that you're providing our county. And I just want to thank you. Let's give them a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Next, we move on to old business. Does anyone have any old business? Mr. McFarland.
Well, first I want to say, as somebody who used to call Michael Gaines boss, everyone should come and see that keynote. He's a good guy, very good guy. But my old businesses, and I think we're going to get an update on this, but I want to double check. A few of us had asked for a discussion in terms of security across the district. I just wanted to follow up and see if we're planning on having that discussion at a board meeting soon.
I want to thank you for bringing it up, and we are going to have a preliminary discussion tonight. We had an opportunity to have a very extensive meeting with our local police department and also the sheriff's department, and talking about, I don't want to say intensifying our relationship, because we had a really good relationship with them, but we had a good exchange of ideas and opportunities to really increase the level of security and safety that we have in our school system. So Mr. Rob Sherman and I are going to give a overview, and then we're going to have a document that's going to come to the full board. Some things we felt that it would not be conducive for us to really speak publicly, because they are safety things that we want to make sure that we are responding to. So, Mr. McFarland, tonight we will begin that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
At what point is that, Dr.
We're going to do that under superintendent's report.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other old?
Excuse me.
That's okay. Dr. Milton, I was wondering if you could bring us up to date on the status of the audit?
Absolutely. We will. We are going through that process now. We had a meeting in cabinet today. Excuse me, Mr. Basco told us the status of where we are, and I'll turn it over to him right now. There you are down there. Sorry.
Right now, we're getting close to finishing it up. We have until the end of this week to get the state AFR over to the state board. We think we can get that done. Not positive, but we believe we can. If we don't, the repercussions for that for a short time are that our federal funds will be frozen, and we'll go on the watch list. Other than that, it sounds serious. It's not as serious as it sounds, I don't believe. But like I say, I think we're going to get that there. Then the second part of the report, the board report, is probably a couple weeks away yet, so I think we're going to present that at the March 4th board meeting.
AFR, do you want to say what that is?
Annual financial reports, the annual financial report that goes to the board, and then the CAF or CAFR, which is what's the word? I can't remember the first word. Annual financial report. Can't hear me? That goes to the board.
This year we've been under the early warning
Right.
as our financial profile. Is
And-
that correct?
Yes. And
And what has been the role of ISB with regard to being an early warning school district?
basically, at this point in time, they just come out and discuss our situation with me, and I've spoken with their consultant on a couple of occasions. And the warning, our score this year is exactly the same. Last year, which is 3.0, which is on warning.
Hearing none, I'll move on to new business. Is there any new business? Okay. So presentations to the board. I guess we go to business reports. Dr. Milton.
Yes, at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Joe Basco.
President White, members of the board, attached is a summary of revenue and expenditures for the month of January 2013 for the education and the operations and maintenance funds. The accrued salary financial report and the accounts receivable outstanding report are attached. For the month, the Ed Fund had revenues of $5.6 million and expenditures of $12.5 million. Those expenditures exceeded revenues by $6.9 million. The Operations and Maintenance Fund revenues were $2,600 with expenditures of $1.24 million, so expenditures exceeded revenues by $1.24 million.
Are there any questions for Mr. Basker?
One question. So when did we receive our last batch of money from the state, or have we gotten any recently?
We have. We've actually, last month, our outstanding amount from the state was around $7 million, and that's down to about $4 million for this year. So we did get an influx of funds this last month.
Okay, so we're $4 million behind from them?
Yes.
From the state?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Moving to the superintendent's report, Dr. Milton.
Yes, as I indicated earlier, I just want to give actually two updates on my report tonight. The first one being safety and security. We had an extensive meeting last week in Cabinet where we invited our local police department as well as the sheriff's department, and we had a list of ideas, a list of questions, and they were very patient. They talked about their commitment to Springfield Public Schools, and so we walked away with a clear understanding about the current practices that we have in place, the next steps, excuse me, to some things, and then finally, there were a list of recommendations on both ends that we talked about. So with that said, I think that's a good segue to turn it over to Rob Sherman.
Thank you, Dr. Milton. Members of the board, what I'm about to present here is a summary of where we currently are. Where we're headed will come in a later date in a more detailed report from Dr. Milton. Currently, all district buildings have door access systems that include a camera to monitor the entrance to the building, and signs are posted directing all visitors to the main office. Each school has a safety plan and completes a security assessment survey before the beginning of the school year to identify potential weaknesses. Those plans are also being downloaded online with the ROE to the sheriff's office now. So they also have access in addition to the Springfield Police Department. So they're electronically downloading those, so at any time if there was an incident at a school, they could pull up the emergency safety plan for that building. The city and council and police have been provided with floor plans for the district buildings that clearly mark the utility shutoffs. The IP cameras at the high school can be viewed remotely, and we're working on language to share that access with the Springfield Police Department and the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office for their mobile command centers. School safety officers are assigned to each high school and the alternative school, and off-duty police officers are utilized and assigned to our middle schools. Random wandings are conducted in conjunction with police officers and staff members. K-9 locker searches are randomly conducted. A district-wide radio standard was implemented and each school was assigned a frequency. Law enforcement first responders have our frequencies. We have also issued a radio to the Springfield Police Department, and we just okayed to purchase additional radios for the Illinois State Police Mobile Command and the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office Mobile Command. Police officers have been encouraged to check in as much as possible with the schools and be as visible. They've increased patrols around those schools. Active shooter training is held jointly with the Springfield police officers and civilian security personnel annually. And finally, based on the strong relationship we have with the city and county, we can't express enough gratitude to them for the hard work that they do in helping ensure safety for our students each day. Thank you.
The document that would be much more detailed, you should receive that within the next day or so. And we wanted to make sure that we follow through. And our goal is to come back to entertain any questions and talk more specifically about some other items. However, at the same time, we were advised not to go into too much detail with the level of specificity because you want to make sure that we always uphold safety. And if we divulge some of those things, we probably would be violating some of the safety things that we have in place.
Dr. Milton, at what time do you, when do you plan on us having that discussion?
Well, you're going to receive the document probably no later than tomorrow.
I'm just asking because I've had requests from members of the community who wanted to make comments about our safety plan, and I'd encourage them to wait until it was on the agenda. So is there going to be a meeting where it is on the agenda?
Yes, we can probably do that as early as next board meeting.
Oh, great. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. Does the whole board feel good about that? Is that
Within the
takers?
parameters that you just described.
Yeah.
That's very important.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, I agree with those parameters that you just were talking about.
Excellent, excellent. The next item that I wanted to just give a general overview, and you're going to receive this documentation as well. It's pretty extensive, but we're going through the process of fulfilling our obligation in accordance to the policy, looking at the community's ability to have some dialogue around some of the financial questions within our schools. Jane Addams, they met June 30th. They talked about the cost-saving measures, some materials and those things, and we have a list of those items. Blackhawk, they had the opportunity to meet February 1, and there was a list of priorities that the building felt as though they need to have. And these meetings were facilitated by the principals of each building. If we look at Butler, they met February 2nd, Du Bois, January 24th, Enos, January 22nd, Fairview, February 7th, they're meeting, Graham, January 25th, Harvard Park, January 29th. And one thing about Harvard Park, it was a consistent theme with some of our other schools, their concern with security. More potential civilian security in the school or what have you. And then Hazeldale, they had their meetings scheduled. The staff, they were present, but no community members came out to that meeting. Isles, they had their meeting January 23rd, and there were questions around Title I allocations and how would those Title I allocations impact Isles, if there were dollars in the future that were going to come that way, and there were line items spent. So the questions there were all reverberating around Title I. Lake Town, they met January 18th. There was about 100 people who attended that meeting, and they just listened. No one there provided any suggestions at all. There were no questions. They just listened to the administration, if you will. Lee, they had their meeting January 30th. No parents attended. However, a few teachers attended, and they talked about some of their concerns that they had. So we were able to document those items. So you'll receive what some of those questions were. Lindsay, they met January 30th, excuse me. And the following they talked about parents were surprised that some middle schools had similar enrollment as Lindsay, yet had more administrators. So they wanted to make sure that the board was cognizant of having a bona fide SPA person to support the principal there. And then they talked about some alternative funding ideas in terms of extending partnerships with corporate sponsors and things of that magnitude. Marsh, again, they met January 30th, but there was no suggestions or feedback that were provided there at the meeting, other than some of their some questions around safety as well. Bethany Withrow, January 31st, they met. There was not a lot of input or attendance there. McClernand, same thing. Pleasant Hill, February 5th. Ridgely, January 30th. And they talked about, all the things that are working well at Ridgely School. There was some concern around the librarian situation, as well as needing more supplies. So. And then some of the changes that are taking place throughout the district and what impact that would have on the building. Sandburg, they met January 31st, and there was a lot of positives. Many parents were pleased to talk about the quality of education that's going on over at Sandburg, and they gave a lot of positive feedback. And they talked about how Sandburg is effectively utilizing the resources that are allocated to them. They were very, very pleased with that. Southern View, on the 30th, and their main topic was the fear of school closings and if that would impact Southern View in the future. And Wanlis had a staff meeting on January 31st, 2013, and then there's a list of ideas and comments that they had. And so Wilcox, they met, or they're meeting tomorrow, actually, as well as CCPA. They're meeting on the 7th of February. Franklin, January 23rd, and they had a litany of positives as well as some questions around the allocation of resources and the impact that it would have on Franklin. Grant, February 21st, Jefferson, January 24th, and there were no specific suggestions over at Grant on the budget. However, they talked about a correlation between GPA and attendance and how those things matched and what can they do to make sure that they continue to have students present every day, as well as continuing to increase test scores, which they are doing very well over there at Grant. And then Lincoln, they had some concerns. They met January 22nd, and you will see that on the attached document. Washington, the FACE team, they talked about interns, those cuts there, things around security, and also the impact of the potential closing of CCPA and what that would mean, as well as one parent voiced her concern about the cuts that are going on in special education over at Washington. Lanphier, met January 31st, not a large turnout in attendance, no overwhelming concerns about resources there. Southeast, they're meeting February 18th, and so hopefully we'll get some feedback there. Springfield High met January 22nd, and they wanted to talk about ways in which they can implement or incorporate the technology to help save money on paper and copying and what that meant, and to create a tab box or something for parents to select so they would not have to receive all of the school mailings. In Douglas, February 5th, they're meeting tomorrow in SLA. They met on the 25th of January, and again, not a large turnout or a lot of feedback. So there we have it. You guys will receive this in writing and much more detailed. I just wanted to provide a general overview to you, the board that is, and the public in general. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yes, Mr. McFarland?
I would just request that, I just request that, I'm still not live, okay. I would just request that for the schools that haven't met yet, if we can work on getting the information out to folks a little better. I was at Lanphier and Ridgely, and there wasn't much parent involvement. I don't think it wasn't a matter of folks don't care about what's going on, but a lot of them didn't know these meetings were happening. So if we can market those more, it'd be great.
Absolutely. That's a good point, and we will make sure that we're cognizant of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Neal?
Dr. Milton, will there be any numbers attached to anything? I mean, in terms of it being a budget discussion, in terms of ways that they saw where there could be additional savings or places that they wanted to redirect funding? Or, I mean, as I read the policy, that's what the meetings were supposed to be about?
Yeah, and it's very simple. We can take the anecdotal information that we have on some of their requests around safety and security and what that would value as a dollar amount. That's no problem. Thank you.
Moving on to...
Madam President, just to piggyback on what Scott said, I think we still have that robocall system or whatever. I think that maybe 3 or 4 days in advance of a meeting could be utilized by building.
Yeah, I think that's a tool.
Or group all, whatever meeting on that same night together, and make a robocall, something.
Yeah, the automated system has been an effective medium for us, at least I believe it, especially if people decide not to hang up before the message comes out. But we will definitely take advantage of that with the schools that we have in place. It's a good idea. Thank you.
Approval of consent action items. Dr. Milton.
Yes, at this time, we're seeking consent for action items 8.1 through 8.7.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Luby, a second by Mr. McFarland. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Hammers, would you please call for a vote? Please vote.
And one abstention, the motion passes.
Okay.
Madam President,
Mrs. Johnson.
I'd like to ask the question, you had already called for the question, but on this mechanical replacement at Sandburg, that's health life safety dollars?
That is.
Okay, next is number 9.1, approval of personnel recommendations. Dr. Milton?
Yes, I want to read a statement publicly. Tonight, I had recommended the appointment of Mrs. Cherie Morrison to the position of Director of Secondary Education Programs. As you know, we have a number of retirements that's going to really create a lot of institutional loss. And it was my desire to fill as many positions as we possibly can so that the people that are going into the new roles will have the opportunity to learn from the people that are currently sitting in those positions. It's imperative. Our district has always prided themselves on sustainability and making sure that we had a smooth continuum once we had transitions of this magnitude. And so tonight, I wanted to recommend Cherie Morrison. Unfortunately, Ms. Morrison is not able to join us this evening, and I wanted to read a public statement that she wanted me to share with the board and also the public. And one thing I must say about our administrators, they are very dedicated. And the first priority is to do what's best for children. She had an event at her school this evening, and she selected to be there because she made a number of students a promise that she would be present. So let me just read that, so please indulge me for a moment. It says, "Dear board members, And Dr. Milton, let me begin by thanking you for the opportunity to serve as secondary schools director in programs. Please know that I count it an honor and privilege to serve the families, students, and the staff of Springfield Public Schools at large. While I would love to have been able to attend tonight's meeting, I had an appointment that was scheduled prior to this day. Science fair at Jefferson Middle School. The students have worked so hard preparing their projects and preparing their presentations. I don't want to let them down. Again, I thank you for affording me the opportunity and know that I will work hard for the families, students, and the staff of Springfield Public Schools. So she's not here physically, but she's definitely here spiritually. Just give her a big hand, please. And one thing about Cherie, she has a rich background. She has high school background. She has always been an administrator who's dedicated to improving student achievement. But she's also really known and respected as serving as a role model. So I look forward to her doing an incredible job in the teaching and learning department as we begin to move our district forward to acquiring the level of excellence that we all desire.
Well, President White, the superintendent recommends the approval of the personnel recommendations with 3 changes. 2 are deletions, and I'd like to point those out to you. On page 1, delete the agenda item for Ms. Joanne Carver, and also on page 2, under the classified section, please delete the agenda item for Ms. Lucy Calabrusco. And then in addition to the last change, as a change, not a deletion, on page 2, letter D, for a staff member, Melissa Schrock, to end her date of her family medical leave, which would be extended to March 5th. So those 3 changes, the personnel agenda is good, and recommend that to you for approval.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
Stoudemire, by Mr. Luby. Mrs. Hammers, would you please call for a vote?
Thunderbird,
Except I am no on classified new hires number 3.
you just want to... Johnson,
Aye.
Ruby,
Aye.
McFarland,
Aye.
Mueller,
Yes, except I'm recusing myself on E, administrative 1. Thank you.
Stoudemire,
Aye.
White.
Aye.
That is 7 aye votes with the 2 noted abstentions.
Okay.
Don't have options.
Sorry.
Can everybody vote now? Next is item 9.2, approval of a revision to board policy, graduation requirements. Would it be Ms. Chart or Ms. Crum? Okay.
President White, members of the board, we have been looking at our graduation requirements.
Can't hear.
We have been looking at our graduation requirements and would like to make a change in that area where we would reduce public speaking from 1 credit to 0.5 and increase our electives to 7.5. The purpose for doing this is it allows more flexibility in our schedule, and with Common Core, speaking is part of the literacy requirements that should be used in all classes.
So moved. Second.
So There's been a motion by Mr. Luby, a second by Mr. McFarland. Is there any discussion? Mrs. Thunderberg.
Mrs. Chard, I've been asked by several parents why we're not starting that change with the class of 2015. Why would we wait?
16 would be our freshmen this year, I believe, and so we're starting with them to give just a common progression through. If it's 15, we're just keeping them on the same scale we already are.
I have a follow-up question. By doing that, though, are the members of the class of 15, have those students taken any speech yet?
Some of them they should be taking it shortly, and so we just made the decision to keep it to begin with 16.
By shortly, you mean
many of them have not taken it yet. Yes.
That was the question that came to me, that a lot of the kids couldn't take it as freshmen. Some of them had elected not to take it now, so they wouldn't have even started down the path of taking it yet. So would it warrant consideration to start?
It certainly could. We can take another look at that. That's no problem.
It's just backing it down that one semester.
Yeah, we can do that.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Hammers, would you please call for the vote?
Johnson?
Aye.
Luby?
Aye.
McFarland?
Aye.
Mueller? Yes. Stoudemire?
Aye.
White?
I'm an aye, but with the understanding that Ms. Chart's going to look at that further.
Thunderberg?
Aye, but I would also like to start with the class of 15 if you can do it.
That is 7 aye votes.
Okay, motion carries. Moving to roll call action item 9.3, and I have a note from someone who wanted to make a comment. Is that you, Mr. McFarland?
Thank you.
Okay.
Just real quick before we go into public comment on this. Am I good? Okay. Oh, there I am. I just have concerns regarding how this vote will be taken tonight. I believe that the only way to be fully transparent is to take each one of these recommendations of Resolution 9.3 and 9.4 into consideration as individually. This will allow for thorough discussion of each item and a clear yes or no vote to each item. This is especially important since we are voting on a mixture of personnel and facility recommendations, and some of the administration recommendations and community committee recommendations contradict each other. So it would also make it easier for those present in the room and those who will read the minutes later on to understand what action is actually taken tonight. So therefore, I'd like to motion that lines 1 through 33 on recommendation 9.3 and lines 1 through 12 in recommendation 9.4 be discussed and vote on individually.
Motion on the table and a second. Is there any discussion? I totally disagree. I believe that the way we have it set up is exactly the way that we handle our votes on large items like personnel. We have started this process very early. Every single budget cut that will be voted on tonight has had a board meeting during which members of the public have been able to speak, and board members have had the ability to make any points that they have wanted to make. Again, tonight, before we make these votes, we will have a discussion portion and a public comment portion. So yet again, every member of the public who wants to speak may do so, and every board member who has comments to make would do so. When we vote, board members may note, just like two board members just did on personnel, the items that they choose to vote no on, if they so choose to do that. And I think it's much more efficient to do it this way. Any further discussion? Mrs. Hammers, would you call for a vote on the motion, please?
I certainly will. Mrs. White, could you please, I did not hear who seconded.
Mr. Luby?
Mr. Luby made the second. Thank you. Okay. Luby?
Aye.
McFarland?
Aye.
Mueller?
No.
Stoudemire?
No.
White?
No.
Thunderberg? No. Johnson?
Aye.
That is 3 ayes and 4 noes. The motion passed.
Okay, so I'm going to start this with public participation. Everyone who would like to have a copy should be able to get a copy of the list of cuts. Where would those be, Mrs. Hammers?
They're on the front. They're on the table right in front of the stage. Just over here in front of Mr. Lundy.
Oh, okay. I just can't see over the stage.
Wait, excuse me, how many people in the audience do not have a copy of those cuts? Raise your hand. Can we get someone that could, maybe a couple people that can go around and pass them to the individuals that don't have it, so that we can reduce a lot of activity?
I think that's an excellent idea.
We have our beautiful college capital students here. Why don't you guys, your future leaders of tomorrow. And please raise your hand, people, if you don't have a copy.
So I will, is my volume on?
Nope.
Am I on? Okay. First, everyone gets, pursuant to our public policy, public participation policy, up to 3 minutes. That, though, does not apply to Mr. Ford, who I will call on first on behalf of the SEA, although Mr. Ford has assured me that he's not going to be talking too long. And then the next person, the person who will be on deck, is Adam Lopez, who plans on talking about budget cut item number 7, which is high school teaching positions.
Okay, if you guys, once you get a copy, just put your hands down so they'll know.
That was a good one. Just 1 minute, Mr. Ford.
Not a problem.
Thanks, guys, for passing those out.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Ford, are you ready to begin?
Sure, thank you. Board of Education members, Dr. Milton, cabinet members, my esteemed colleagues in the audience, also district stakeholders that are in the audience. In difficult economic times, the Springfield Education Association feels it's necessary to remind the district and the school board that the 1,300 members we represent are educational professionals who work tirelessly to provide a quality education for the students of Springfield. We believe that all of our members are vital to the educational system, which helps prepare Springfield students for their place in the 21st century. The purpose of SEA is to support and honor our members so that they can have the resources necessary to educate our students. SEA cannot and will not support any budget cuts that reduce the amount of services we provide to our students. Nor will SEA ever be in support of replacing highly qualified, trained, and certified professionals with volunteers. We will not be lured to support one of our groups over another because we don't just believe, we are sure that we are part of a determined team that is essential to ensure that we can deliver a quality, free, public education to the youth of Springfield. After cuts are carried out, it will be imperative that the district understand that education must look different in Springfield. It will be impossible for our members to complete all present tasks, as well as adopting Common Core standards with less people, less time, and with less resources. Something will have to come off the plate. Representing 1,300 members can sometimes seem like a difficult task. But the reason it's difficult is because our educators, all of our educators, are vitally important to the educational success of this district, and all of them deserve support from not only their association, but the district. For years, the SEA motto has been Springfield Education Association, the heart of Springfield Public Schools, and that motto remains as true today as it has ever been. On behalf of SEA, as I've done before, I implore you to take a hard look at the budget to find ways to make cuts from the budget without aiming those cuts on the life force, the heart of District 186. Our people are in the front line of education every day, working together to achieve outstanding results for our students and community. Think of your own past. Have you had a teacher that had a lasting impact on you? How would your life look now if that teacher had been cut due to budget cuts? What would you look like now had you not had that influence in your life? The difference to one of our students may be life or death. It may be the difference between life success and life disappointment. We believe the question isn't, can the district afford to keep educational positions? Rather, we believe the question is, can the district and the community afford not to? Thank you for your time.
Mr. Lopez, you're next, and following you is Michael Afolian. I'm sorry. Afolian, I apologize for messing up your name. About cut number 13.
My name is Adam Lopez. I'm a taxpayer here in Springfield. I'm also a concerned citizen about the school district and their budget problems. I do know cuts have to be made, but I believe you, Dr. Milton, are cutting the wrong items. I believe you are more concerned about finding another job than fixing the budget problem in this district. I am a product of District 186, a 2001 graduate of Southeast High School. I take pride in this district because without these teachers, I would not be able to be successful as I am today. You're wanting to lay off teachers, which is the wrong move. We need those teachers in the classroom. Class sizes are way too big as it is. Dr. Milton, when I look at these cuts, I don't see a reduction in your pay. I come from the business world. When cuts are made, they start at the top and not the bottom. This district is very top-heavy in administration. You need to make cuts in administration/support services before you start with teachers. Do you know if you ask every administrative/support service in the district to take a 10% pay cut by the numbers you guys have on your webpage, you would free up $3 to $4 million in the budget. Then you look at jobs that you have created since you've been here, Dr. Milton, frees up another $1 million. So by my math, I have just cut $5 million from the budget, and I did it for free. So Ms. White, Mr. Luby, Ms. Funderburg, Mr. Stoudemire, Mr. McFarland, Ms. Mueller, Ms. Johnson, I'm asking you for not to make these cuts in the classroom and make the cuts at the administration level. I know you might not approve these cuts from the administration, but I do know there's election April 9th and a new school board will be elected. On May 6th, there will be voting rights on these issues, so I hope you relay the message to all administrations that has a job that is not safe because the new board will be cleaning up 1,900 in all administration. Dr. Milton, I also promise that if you're still here, you will not be the superintendent of this district after May 6th. Thank you.
Mr. Lopez, I understand the importance of campaigning, but these decisions are pretty serious. They really are. And we have gone through a slew of cuts for the last 3 years. So I do want to put that out there. Thank you.
No,
Answer that?
no.
No, I can't. You just get your 3 minutes. Mr. Appelion, you're next.
All right.
Susan Palmer is after this to speak on cut numbers 15 and 16.
Good evening, board members and everybody. My name is Michael Afolayan. You called it right the other time. Thank you. I am a parent of a student, a child who is standing next to me, who goes to Lincoln Magnet School. Thank you. I am also an educator. I take education very seriously. Until recently, I was a part of Illinois Board of Higher Education, and before that time, I was a professor of education at SIUE. When my daughter came home and showed me a paper that showed the cuts, the proposed cuts from the personnel, especially from her school. I'm not even familiar with other schools, but from her school, the teachers that were going to be cut, I think there were 3 of them, the security personnel to be cut, and a couple of other programs. I was really shocked, my wife and I. My wife is also an educator, and we felt that was scary. I immediately sent an email message to all members of the board, and I think I sent a copy to Dr. Melton. So I'm not going to repeat what I've said there. My daughter, who is actually currently a student, a middle school student, wanted to say something, and I said I will follow you. So let's hear what she has to say.
Hi everyone, my name is Aya Falayan. I'm an 8th grader at Lincoln Magnet School. All the classes that I've seen on here are extremely important to me. Right now I take AVID, and I know that if I had lost this program, I wouldn't be where I am today. Because of AVID, I was accepted into Beta. I got straight A honor roll, and I met a lot of really awesome, cool people because of this program. And I know that if it wasn't for this program, I wouldn't be in the position I am today. And so I ask that before you guys make these decisions, you just think about not just the program itself, but the lives, like the students who will be affected by this, and the teachers as well, because these are jobs that people need, especially with this economy. So I hope that you guys consider all these things before you guys make your final decisions. And thank you so much for allowing me to be part of your district.
Thank you very much.
Next is Mrs. Palmer, and following her is Mark Woolen, who's here to speak about number 19, the consolidation of Wanlis and Pleasant Hill.
Good evening, Board, Dr. Melton, Ms. White, and Board of Education. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of Washington Middle School stakeholders and, of course, as the principal of Washington Middle School, probably addressing the Board for the last time in my career. We are worried about the proposed cuts to security and interns at Washington Middle School. I'm here to suggest that cuts cannot and should not be made equally across the middle schools, that when making cuts, you consider the needs of individual schools, and remember that fair is not always equal. Washington Middle School is located at 2300 East Jackson Street in one of the highest crime areas in the city. I spoke to Police Chief Williams today, and he gave me permission to share a couple of his comments. He suggested that more communication is needed with the police department regarding the cuts, as Dr. Melton suggested earlier this evening, and that the police department's main concern is safety of children in our schools, and they will do what they can to increase patrols in those areas. However, because patrol officers in the Washington Middle School get the most calls, they have the least uncommitted time to spend more time around our school. I have the best security in the district. My security team are familiar with the neighborhood, and in fact, one lives across the street from the school. They both know our families, having grown up with many of our parents. Together, they diffuse so many issues that arise in the neighborhood that play out in the school. Losing one of them would be devastating. Washington Middle School used to be a school where some parents were afraid to let their children attend. That is no longer the case. Our enrollment has been steadily increasing over the past several years. We're the second largest middle school by population in the district. Changing our reputation, albeit an undeserved one, from the school where many people thought nothing but fights happened to a school that has high-achieving students has not been an easy transformation, but as Dr. Milton has pointed out on several occasions, we're one of those schools where it's getting done. A few short years ago, we averaged between 6,000 and 8,000 referrals to the office a year. Because of BIST, a dedicated intern and assistant principal, security, and staff that understand the importance of forming positive, caring relationships with students, those numbers have been slashed. We have a positive, orderly, safe learning environment to prepare students for college, career, or military. The learning environment, in fact, is one of the things that visitors to the school comment on, both inside the district and our outside of the district visitors. I do not believe that environment can be maintained without the human resources that we currently have. The agenda states that the intern cut takes us back to 2008. That is not true for Washington Middle School. We've always had that, not always, but we have had that additional intern position that the other middle schools did not obtain till 2008. That was based on need.
Time.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
And our last speaker on this resolution is Mr. Mark Willen. Consolidation of Wanless and Pleasant Hill.
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, Dr. Milton, school board members and directors. As you know, I'm the mayor of the Village of Grandview. The last time I was in front of you, I read the Village of Grandview resolution in support of Wanless School. Tonight, I would like you to consider several things before voting on closing Wanless School. As administrators, principals, secretaries, teachers, custodians, we all have one thing that is most important: the children, the students. As the school board, while that's the most important, you must also consider the whole community, the city, the townships, the villages, the subdivisions. Your actions can affect entire communities. Closing of Wanless School would be devastating to the Village of Grandview. Please don't close Wanless School. If closing a school is the only option, I would ask you to consider other schools. For example, Hazeldale. It has no sidewalks, a cul-de-sac road to the south with 10 houses, and a cul-de-sac road to the north with 7 houses. The main road in front of the school, West Lakeshore Drive, has a speed limit of 40 miles an hour. Wanless in Grandview has sidewalks on all the streets with 700 houses. We are in the process now of applying for grant monies through a state program called Safe Ways to Schools to improve existing sidewalks and street crossings. The speed limit on North Grand, a block away, is 30 miles an hour, and at tomorrow night's village board meeting, we're going to discuss lowering the speed limit on all the streets to 25. The Grandview Police Department is only 2 blocks away and patrols the area continually. North Grand has a stoplight with crosswalk a block away for children to cross safely. One last thing. Maybe the renovation costs for Hazeldale are less than for Wanless School, and that would be because Hazeldale is a much smaller school with only 10 classrooms compared to Wanless, which has 18. Please don't close Wanless School.
Thank you. Dr. Milton, do you want to read the resolution? Have someone?
That's everyone?
Yep, that's it for that agenda item.
Okay, I just want to, talk about, this is a very difficult time. We have been faced with these challenges over the last few years. Our district has made insurmountable cuts, if you will. Administrators have had their base salary frozen for the last 3 years. Meanwhile, the cost of health insurance is increasing. Since 2009, we have cut 6 administrators in central office, 1 literacy coordinator, 1 assistant director of school support, 3 managing principals, coordinators in teaching and learning, and 1 special ed supervisor, 1 clerical position, and 50% in clerical substitute staff. The board requested that we begin to do the budget planning and the cuts last fall. My cabinet and me have spent an enormous amount of time working, hours on top of hours, and also looking at ways in which we can maximize efficiencies and ways that we can really protect the integrity of what we've established as a school system. The community has been involved. This is an example of the input and the conversations that have taken place, not only this year's process, but the previous years. And I always say, if you have any specific ideas, recommend them. There's mediums in which we will definitely get that information and respond and to see what that impact can be. But I'm here to tell you tonight that we are at the bone. We really are. There's nothing else that we can do at this juncture. We don't have resources somewhere waiting to kind of get us out of this conundrum, if you will, that we're in. We're not immune to this. I don't know any school systems, especially public urban schools like our district, that's exempt to this. It's a very difficult time, not only here in Springfield, but across the United States of America. The CBR's recommendations are not dissimilar. As you can see, in some cases they overlapped with the hard work the cabinet has put forth. Although we don't agree with everything that they have put forth, there is some opposition, but still there's a common thread that with any kind of cut, it's going to be painful. So I just want to suggest this whole thing about this perception that we have waste. It's a myth. It really is. Our faculty and staff, they are in the valley. They are in the midst of trying to do what's right to not only prepare our young people for globalization, but like Mr. Ford said tonight, education for many of the students that are entrusted to our care is a matter of life and death. So we don't take that role seriously. We take that role very seriously. We don't take it lightly. And it's very important for this entire community. I'm asking you to be sensitive to the hard work. We have people who have put forth countless of hours doing what's right, giving up their own resources to do what's best in the lives of our children. Those are the things that we can't see. And those are the people that I consistently call in our system our merchants of hope, because they are so dedicated to bringing and instilling hope not only in the minds of our children, but also their hearts, so that we can have a safe community, so that we can have a well-educated community. So it's very easy to cast blame. It's very easy to point fingers. But I must say that I'm very proud of this faculty and staff that this community has been blessed with to do the work. I call it God's work, to really work with our most vulnerable population in this community, and that's our students. So we don't have a problem of expense. Our fundamental problem is a problem of revenue. And so instead of really attacking these individuals that sit on this stage tonight, let's start, again, having conversations with our state senators. Let's start having conversations with our legislators. Let's start having conversations at the federal level so that we can do our due diligence, because in a way, these individuals up here are very helpless, and they all care for what's best for children. So I do want to open that up with our discussion as we go through the process of making these very difficult decisions this evening.
do the resolution.
Yes, I'm going to call on Mr. Basco to take the items.
President White, members of the board, the superintendent recommends adoption of the following resolution. Be it resolved that due to economic necessity, the Board of Education approves the attached budget reduction recommendations for an approximate savings of $6,387,800.
So moved. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mrs. Mueller, seconded by Mr. Luby. Before we begin the discussion, the way I'd like to group it is, if you look on your sheets, if people have questions and comments about, if we could just do them group by group, I think it would be a little bit easier to follow. So, does anyone have any discussion about items 1 through 6, which come under the heading of central office, administration, support staff, and other? Okay, the next group would be high school. Oh, sorry. Yes, Mrs. Funderburg.
Dr. Milton, I noticed that you added a clerical position to the central office cuts. Is that shown on numbers 1 through 6?
Oh, did we add that, Ms. Erland, did I add that on there?
Yes.
Yes, it's on there.
I only see 2, but okay.
There should be another one.
Okay. So the only cuts, and I've asked this before, only cuts that relate to 1900 are now the 3 support staff positions because you've taken off the volunteer coordinator. Is that correct?
Actually, no. Like I said earlier, when we had a chance to have dialogue in the midst of ourselves, of each other, we are still working to find ways in which we can make cuts, and that's something that we're going to be doing over the next several weeks. And the volunteer coordinator, that really is going to be a bona fide cut. But what we're suggesting is that we can find grants to supplement the dollars that we're putting forth for that position. And so that number will go up. I talked to you guys earlier about looking at ways in which we can consolidate some of our administrative tasks and begin to spread them out so that we can attempt to see if it's possible to make another cut at that level as well.
May I just ask a quick follow-up? Dr. Milton, so in other words, there's number 4 is the central office support staff is 1 position. Number 5, school support secretary is 2. Am I missing a third one? Or was there a third one? Or were there just 2?
Yeah, there's another one, a secretarial position. And then we're looking again with the volunteer coordinator. That will be offset by grants positions. Okay.
All right, Mrs. Vanderberg.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you are going to continue to look at the central office operations. I again point out, even if we're now at 3 full-time employees for a total of about $130,000, that's again only a 3% reduction dollar-wise and only an 8% reduction FTE-wise. My suggestion, since you're looking for suggestions, is to look at 2 specific areas. Communications, where we have 5 full-time employees for a total of $371,200, and human resources, where we have 7 FTEs for a total of $785,000. I believe more cuts need to come from those areas.
Actually, just to bring... I don't know about the communications total in terms of the individuals working in that department. Okay, look at that gentleman in the back right there. He'll get us together. Okay. So, Mr. Sherman, you want to speak to the communications? Because last I checked, you and Ms. Thomas were doing that work.
I believe two of the positions in my department are up for cuts, right? The volunteer coordinator and the clerical, right?
Yes.
Okay, so there's two.
But the volunteer coordinator position is not being cut now. It's
Well, the funds to pay for the coordinator are being cut, and she's expected to keep her position. In order to keep her position, she'll have to raise grant money to pay for it. So that would be a cut.
Mr. Sherman, I'm having a hard time hearing you. I'm sorry.
Okay, can you hear me?
Better, okay.
Had you been hearing me? Okay. My department didn't exist a few years ago, but the positions did. The positions were put under my department. The existing positions were put under my department. So this isn't like a new department with new positions. And I don't know if that's been known or not. A few of them are downright essential, or a web programmer. The person who runs our print center. A person who runs our Channel 22 and video operations. We cut a position last year as well. I cut my expenses by 50%. So.
I appreciate that, Mr. Sherman. I do feel, though, that in these hard times, we have to look at student contact and teachers. And I think that I understand that you view your role and your communications area as essential. We also view teaching and learning as essential. And I challenge you, Dr. Milton, please look at those areas.
Thank you. Mr. Fleming, you want to talk about HR?
Am I coming through? I can't. Okay. Am I now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The HR department is all essential services. There's really not anything that goes on there that you cannot not do. We deal with everything from the hiring process to the other end when we have to discipline and terminate people. And also, it goes on in that office is all of the collective bargaining agreement, the application of the rules and the regs, and all of the things that go on with the staffing of the district, and then the compliance issues that we're dealing with now. It goes, in unemployment, workers' compensation, there are a lot of duties that we're obligated and required to take care of that you can't not do. They have to be done. We've had 5 people, not administrative, but administrative support in that office since 1989. We have a full-time director, and we currently have a full-time assistant director. With the assistant piece, we've been all over the board on that. 25, 30 years ago, the communications department, half the job was classified staff. We've had other people come in there to work, and then it was cut, and we've had other people share the position with other positions, such as student support. Norman Cook was a student support person at that time, supported HR with the classified piece. So we've had 1.0 to 2.0 administrative people in that office for a long time. Needless to say, a lot of phone calls, a lot of business, a lot of activity. I could make a case for what we have. We've had extra positions in the past that have been cut. We cut a full-time position a few years ago and have done without it. We're getting down to bare bones. There's no way to eliminate the work or shuffle it off to any other department. It stays there. It's mostly illegal and required activities. I wasn't prepared to give an essay on this tonight or a chapter and verse, but there's a lot of activities that go on there that are just you're required to do. And to take staff away is going to pile on other people. So somebody else is going to do the work, and I think if any of those people were here tonight, they would tell you they're pretty well slammed. There's
there's no waste of time going on there. So I would appeal that not happen. And, but we understand that the district has to make some cuts, and we're targeted to lose a position in HR, and we've talked about it, and, you know, we don't want to deal with that, but we'll do what we have to do. To lose more would be devastating.
Yes, on the entire board, on the document, you have one FTE and number 4, but actually it's 2 FTE reductions. So if you can just make that adjustment. And again, at the total of $92,500.
Well, at this point, can they say ignorance is bliss, but we have been through this process for I don't know how long, and I have said it before that the board should have taken on this responsibility a long time ago. And every time the administration has come to us with recommendations, we've kicked it back to them. And now we have all of these Johnny-come-latelys, including candidates for school board who have never walked in the shoes of a superintendent, and they want to tell us what to do. I think that we have been doing a yeoman's job in terms of educating children and putting children first in this district, and it's been a tough road. We all must understand again and again that economic times are hard everywhere, but yet and still this board wants to sit on in reserves $15 million. And when you have a rainy day, you have to dip into your savings sometimes. It seems to be just a push-pull, 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 and a determination to place all of the blame on Dr. Milton. I would say that as a person who has tried in the last 6 years to have a conversation with him once or twice a week, it's not easy. I have not walked in his shoes, but I have seen what he has done to establish a relationship with the students, with the teachers, with the parents, and with this community. We all must bite the bullet, but we wait until the last minute to come in here. We move our location. Sometimes we have board meetings where there is not anyone there but 75% of the people that are sitting up here. And if you are concerned about education in the city of Springfield, if you are concerned about education, you should come and voice your opinion all through the year, not just at budget time. And you should not point fingers. I don't know of any CEO anywhere in America or in the world that can operate without people to assist them, especially when you have a board of the caliber of this one that fires off questions 24/7. You just don't know what kind of pressure goes on. And to make assumptions about somebody not doing anything, come with specific recommendations of where you think administrative cuts should be made. Tonight, there are board members who are suggesting maybe we should cut here and maybe we should cut personnel and this and in communications. Where were they when these positions were created? Some of them were sitting on the board. We voted on these same sort of items last year. We have established great programs in this district, working together. Since Dr. Milton has been here, we have raised our scores. Isles has improved, Lincoln has improved, all schools have improved. These principals are working their behinds off to make sure that these kids are getting a good education. The students at CCPA are learning. That's what we are in the business of doing, to make sure that these students have an opportunity to learn. You want to cut willy-nilly, but next week you'll be calling him, asking him to hire your sister, your brother, your daughter, or someone else. We need to maintain the staffs that we have, and we need to continue to work to make sure our kids get an education. Because if these children don't get an education, who is going to take care of you when you get old, when you get to be my age? All right? Who's going to take care of you? And I know that all children are not college material, but all children have the ability to learn, whether it's college or some trade. Or if they have a disability, they should have a skill in order that they can be productive in their lives as long as the good Lord has them here on this earth. And that's our responsibility, to make sure that these children have access to education and the best education possible. But let me just say this in ending, that until you've walked a mile in my shoes, or Dr. Milton's shoes, or Jane Chard's shoes, or Bob Lemming, you don't know what goes on in the district. And the teachers, now teachers, and we have teachers who put, I'm sure that probably all the teachers in this district put some of the money that they work hard for back in their classrooms. It's unfortunate that they have to do that, but that is what a teacher who loves teaching does. What was that? Why are we cutting them? Because this board wants to recommend to say that we need to cut instead of dip into the $15 million reserve that we have in the bank. And it started from the board, and it's just disgusting, some of the things that they just want to do. And if you were in the back room, you would know that it's been vicious and it's been very hard.
There we go. Dr. Milton, I have a question about number 2, the bricklayer laborer positions. Those 3 FTEs with the total of $244,000, is that if those cuts are made, are there the remaining folks, is there, I got an email that there potentially is a union issue there. Is that accurate?
Somewhat, and I'll let Mr. Shaver explain that.
Can you hear me? Oh, not yet. I'm not aware of a union issue other than a workload that we'll be missing out on. They're a separate entity of the operations and maintenance. They're not affiliated. They're part of the CIBT, the Central Illinois Building Trades. And I'm not personally aware that there's a union issue. It'd be like if we were a contractor at the end of a job laying off a set of union employees. They would go back into the bench.
In this area be a postpone or delay projects that you're working on and just have them take longer, or will you then have to subcontract out? What worries me is I don't want to spend more money subcontracting out work. To me, that doesn't make sense.
Much of their work would be deferred for a while.
So it'd be a deferral?
Deferred down a few years. At some point, there will have to be projects under health, life, safety to correct issues, masonry issues. A masonry building is not maintenance-free. It does require maintenance. So that would just be deferred for a while, and then at some point we would have to address issues. It might be a district-wide tuck pointing project. It may be just address buildings such as we did Feitchens and Lawrence, where we had one big project, and that made sense to hire out to do that. That's the way it would be. But for the little projects that we can do with them now, they're a benefit to the district, in my opinion.
So when you say deferred for a while, do you mean, could it go as long as a couple of years? Or is it something that you mean deferred by a
It really depends
couple
on
of months?
the situation. We have some parts of buildings that need tuck pointing now that they can address. They're not whole buildings, but they are parts of buildings that get more wear than others, and they are set up to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, the next group is high school, numbers 7 through 12. Did anyone have any comments, questions about that section? Mr. Stoudemire.
President White, I was wanting to know, I still see that we have security on these lists, and the security is paid out of the tort fund. Why are they still on this list?
Good question, Mr. Stoudemire. Yes, the security usually is paid out of tort fund, but we're in the red in that area, and we've been using the ed fund to supplement those dollars.
I've had an email request, a question that I couldn't answer, and that question was, why are we cutting both interns at all three high schools? Why aren't we just cutting one? And I wasn't quite sure. I don't remember from our earlier discussion about that proposal why the decision for both of them was made. And if you could explain that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I will give a response to that, and then I'll turn it over to Ms. Jane Chard, who's over secondary schools. But what really drove this was trying to get to our goal and really looking at each opportunity over and over and over and over again until we can see what would be in the best interest. As you know, last year, the interns came up with the conversation. We talked about the foundation of the program. It really was an opportunity to build capacity, and it wasn't an opportunity that people would live there. And so we've had many cases that our interns have lived there, and they begin to really become embedded into the structure, the administrative structure. And I think that it's at a time now where we have to revisit that even more, because every time that we wait or delay, the need becomes more of a calling for us to do. Ms. Chard?
I can't add a whole lot more to that, other than I know that the high schools would like to hang on to them. They are hoping that within their staffing allocation that they can bring one back, but they have to be able to do that with their staffing allocation. And that may be difficult in cases, but they're going to, I'm sure they're going to make every effort to get that extra support.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Milton.
You're welcome.
Mr. Luby?
Okay, I just want to actually spend a second here to preach a little bit, since I've listened enough. I remember running for school board and having all the answers myself. And I didn't, I found out. And there are easy and simplistic ways of looking at things, and then there's the way that I think ultimately helps educate all of our kids, which is actually looking and targeting and trying to do the least amount of harm. So finger pointing, blaming, again, that was something I did early on. I admit to that. Because it was easy and I thought it was the right thing to do because I thought there were people to blame. And I thought some of the people sitting up here were to blame, honestly. And I'm actually talking about outside the board, but also, board members as well. But that's not productive. And what's productive is that we go in and we try to figure out what to do with what we have. And I don't want to cut teachers. I don't think anybody up here is going out with, focusing in their eyes to say, I want to cut X number of teachers. Those teachers have to go. That's the last thing we want to do. But there are unintended consequences. When you say so-and-so can go here and so-and-so can go here, and you don't really know what they do and what services they provide to the people of the district, somebody else does have to pick that service up, and it dilutes the service that's provided to the public. So no matter what it is, granted, I will tell you, absolutely the top service in everyone revolves around what that teacher does in that classroom with those kids. That's what we're all about here. But if the teacher has to also help clean the school, and the teacher has to also go to 9,000 meetings to pick up for the people that are gone from the building, and the principals that are here when I walk out of a building sometimes, they're still walking around checking the building and checking the doors and the windows. So, again, I'm not here to pitch for anybody or make an argument, but I will say that the superintendent and the district have gone through and done things the correct way and maybe not the easy way. I think we do need to target. I'm not saying we hit it every time. There's been a few years, I've been on the board a few years, and we've had to make cuts. Some of them have been reversed, some of them have been put back. But here's the one thing I also want to say in listening to, and I didn't get my congratulations calls when we did spend into the reserves the last few years, trying to keep these cuts at bay, because we did. We spent several years, and in fact, I've gotten dinged on it from some people about spending into the reserves. They think we should have a gob more reserves. I've made the argument with them that we shouldn't be sitting on a big checkbook. But I will tell you, sitting right here, right now, today, if we don't make cuts, the reserves are going to be gone, completely gone, and we're going to have to borrow. So we can't do that and maintain a viable district. We have to make cuts. I've been saying that for 2 years in a row. And we're going to, and here's the other thing that nobody wants to talk about now either, we're probably going to have to make the same amount of cuts next year. So if they're not done this year, they're going to be on the board for next year, unless we can bring some new revenue in, which is a conversation the board and the community are going to have. But we're looking at another several $1 million worth of cuts next year to balance the budget. So I did want to say that, and I'll get to my question. About the high school teaching positions, I discussed, and I'm well on record about the 7-period day, and if we're getting rid of that eventually anyway, I thought it should have been done, and the Band-Aid should have been ripped off, and that $1 million+ saved. But now that we're not doing that next year, and that was an add-on of some 20-some teachers, we are now putting forth a recommendation of 12 cuts there. How does that affect that 7-period day and the ability to deliver that service to those kids and parents?
And I must say that the cuts that are around the schedule are going to happen eventually. They really are. They're somewhat delayed at this juncture, as we are going to go through the process of coming up with a new schedule. So, Ms. Chard, do you want to talk about that, you and Bob, talk about the 12 that we have been discussing in cabinet and talking about ways in which we're going to work to see if that can happen?
I'll try to get that conversation started. Is that all right now? Is that better? Can you hear me now? Heard that somewhere before. The cuts that are on the table now are trying to take a look at the projections that are made each year
for the school district and for each school, or each high school, all the schools actually, and to try to put some reason and logic to the amount of teachers they'll need to run their school. And as I've said before, we believe that if you've got 2 schools or 3 schools of 1,000 each, they ought to have the same number of teachers, that there ought to be some equity within all of this, and that we treat all of our schools and all of our kids the same. Now, we know and realize that there are differences in each building, and priorities are a little different, and how students select subjects might be different, and the guidance they get, and so on and so forth. But the bottom line is, they ought to have the same amount of resources as each school. So this year, unlike any other year, the projections were a little wacky, and not because of the person that made the projections, but just because of the way they turned out mathematically. And so some of these cuts are because enrollments projections went down at Springfield High School, as an example, and Lanphier went way up, and Southeast kind of held its own. So in light of that, and then factoring in the administrative, the admin intern cuts, and that includes that 12 includes the admin intern that's from the allocation. The high schools have 2 administrative interns. One's out of the allocation, one is out of the superintendent's.
Excuse me, just for clarification, there's 2 line items and one has the administrative intern.
Right.
So does the 12 include administrative interns or no?
It does. Yeah, and that's, well, I see where it's different on the line item, but in our calculations and the projections, it's the same. The number of people that we would give them to run their building would be the number that we're working with.
So we're not cutting 18 positions, we're cutting 12?
Correct.
So then...
I would say that the administrative interns at each school should be 3, not 6, because the rest of them come out of the allocation. Does that make sense? Am I right, Jane?
That's only if the principals decide to use that.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But their number of people that are allocated goes down proportionately.
What are
based upon the
Are
projections.
the savings different than what's indicated here? The estimated savings?
It would be the high school teaching positions, that would be the same. I would say that the administrative intern savings would be less. I think it would be half.
Okay.
Now, you end up losing 6 interns, but the savings is 3 out of a straight line item. And I don't know if I'm getting way off of how this is explained, but in my mind and how I allocate for the schools, it's based upon the projected number of students and the number of teachers we give them to run the school.
So there's going to be 3 in the classroom teachers at each high school. Again, what's the ratio? There may be more or less at one school or another,
After
but
it's
that's
adjusted.
And again, on the delivery of 7-period day, we added 20-some positions for 7-period day to deliver that service.
Yeah, I think it was somewhere between 25 and 30.
So I guess taking 9 away, will that hamper delivering that?
It's going to drive up the
service
class
for them?
size to a certain extent. Not equally, and not every room is going to show the same thing, but you work with averages and you work with these macro numbers, aggregate numbers of people, and it's an average. It ends up being an average. So what I do is to try to explain it is that the denominator is 19, and that includes all aspects of what their needs are, because that number works. It gets close to what they have, and then from there we make a determination what's reasonable and what their needs are, and then apply the 12 cuts. Is how that was done.
Okay, and I just actually, if you'll allow me, I have 2 quick follows and then I'll be done.
Are you on the same topic? Because I have a question on this.
Oh, on the high school?
Yeah.
No, mine have that, or the others.
Okay, so just so I could keep track of the total cuts at the end then, so are you saying, Mr. Libby, it'd be the 6 there's not a total of 18 positions, but it's more of a total of 15 positions?
Yes.
Okay.
In my mind, when we allocate for the buildings, and yes.
Okay, and so then we would cut our final number of savings from 6,387,000 to by about $150,000, so to $6,137,000 or so.
I haven't done the math, but it would be half of whatever that is.
Okay.
Wouldn't you, Jane?
And then I guess my other follow-up on that same item is a piggyback on Mrs. Funderburg in my discussion from before. If there's a way to put that graduation requirement in place sooner, requirement change as far as the second semester of speech, would that, sooner rather than later, would that alter the overall allocation number?
No,
I mean, would it
because the
save
students are
half
spread out
of?
into other areas.
So it wouldn't necessarily save half a position? No. Okay.
Ms. Chard, chime in, please. You had a point you wanted to make.
I think with that position, I had a little extra help here. The reason why we're waiting on to the class of 2016 to implement, it has to do with the GPA, the way we figure GPA. But I'm going to get additional clarification on that because we don't want to mess up the kids who have already started in that process. But I'll get extra clarification for you. As far as the interns go, it is proposed that we're going to make those cuts if, as I said earlier, if they can, the high schools can use part of their FTEs out of their allocation to put those people back. We will do that. The problem is we have to try to look at how our courses are driven and our needs and what the kids are asking for as far as the courses that we offer and making sure that we have our students placed in the right areas. Class sizes, as Bob said, will go up, not horrifically, but they will go up and that will make a difference.
Okay, thank you.
Will it alter the amount of, because one of the reasons this 7-period day was originally pitched was to offer more classes, will that change as well, potentially? That less options will be offered under the 7-period day?
Right, we won't be able to offer the number of courses that we have in the past.
Mr. Luby, you had some thoughts?
Actually, just a really quick one, and I think I know the answers, but I want to make sure that everyone does and double-check me. On 11 and 12, with the custodians, they're talking about cutting 3. I'm anticipating that's 1 per high school. And then the security is 1 each, which, again, I anticipate is 1 per high school. So how many at each of those positions are left at the high schools to cover what used to be 1 additional?
Ms. Chard? Or Darrell, why don't you do the custodian, and then we'll go to security next.
I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know exact numbers, what there would be. It would be 1 day person removed from that, the
So
high
how many
school.
are left then? How many full-time?
There will be, Don, 3?
There'll be 2.
3. 2? I'm sorry. Should have had this, 3 to 2 during the day. And then as the day progresses, more come on for the evening shift.
There's clearly, again, my understanding is we've cut back on custodians a couple of times in the last few years. Again, my understanding coming in was that we were at bare bones.
Correct.
So is that going to bring on some overtime, or what's the anticipation that the work will get? Is the work just not going to get done?
I think there will be a lack of ability for the custodians to help at the teacher level for moving stuff, cleaning up after stuff. That will get done, but
it'll be delayed.
It'll be delayed. They do help during the day for just the functioning of the building. They help teachers move things from time to time. They do haul runs to make sure they're picked up and clean and safe. So that's where you're going to have.
That's not going to happen, is what you're
Right.
saying? Okay.
Later in the evening, it'll get picked up, but it won't happen throughout the day as much as it does now.
Can I follow up on that?
Yes.
Is that going to require more sub-custodians? Because I know, it's, if you've got more stuff to be done in the evening, and you're going to put more on, how many guys are in the building in the evening in the high schools?
I believe there's 5 in a high school.
5 in a high school? Okay, and 2 in the elementaries, right? Or 3?
There's 2 in the elementaries at night, yes.
Okay.
One for each,
I mean,
typically one for each
is it
floor.
going to require us to hire more subs at some point? If that is, that's not producing no savings.
No. The subs take care of when a permanent custodian is sick or on vacation or
Okay, well, I know in some buildings that there is some confusion and job responsibilities and everybody's not picking up their weight, then it creates problems. So what are we going to do as we reduce the number of people in the buildings? How are we going to redefine job duties for that night
if we
shift?
lose those 3 people,
Yes.
I believe it's like the teachers, they get riffed down to, they bump. Is that your question?
No, I want to know how you're going to redefine job duties if you're going to lose one person during the day, so you're not going to have that third person cleaning, and that's going to put more burden on the night shift, and then somebody is going to be crying that something's not being done and complaining. That's something
I
for
haven't
future
heard that
reference.
yet.
Well, okay, well, let's put it in the plan because you'll have to have some redefinition if we accomplish these reductions.
We'll
I
certainly
mean,
do that.
if you're going to reduce, you have got to restructure what's going on. And I don't care what position it is, you've got to do that. And then I just want to add this one thing, that when it comes to reducing class offerings, here we go again. I remember when Cindy White was on the board and Cheryl Wise were on the board, we increased some course offerings because children at Springfield were having classes that weren't accessible at Lanphier High School. So are we going to have to start shifting kids so that they can take the classes that they need and that they desire to take? If we start cutting out classes, here we go again. Education should move forward, not backwards. No response from anybody?
Certainly. I think what we're going to have to do is, as I mentioned before, courses in the high school are driven by student requests. And there will be some of the positions that we're losing are some extra positions like an SAP-related position, which is going to be due to a retirement, and that does not affect our classes. I think there's some people that are leaving in positions that do not directly affect the classes. So we plan to, at this point, to continue to have as many of our classes offered to our students as we can, and give our students as many choices as we can, but they may not have as many choices.
So what you're telling us, bottom line, is that these 19 positions that are, well, that has been now reduced to 15, will not directly affect the classroom?
Yeah, it's going to have an effect. There's no question about it. I mean, you can't cut and not affect. So, but how it'll affect in each school and how much
and course
damage,
offerings.
yeah, we won't know until we apply the cuts and the staffing requests come in from the schools, and then we have to look at it and try to make good decisions about whatever needs to be done, adjustments or more cuts or more staff. You know, we've got a contract we've got to live by too, so we need to meet that, but something's going to give, and you're right about that.
Okay, I'm done. Okay, Mr. McFarland.
Quick question,
The security question.
Oh.
That Ms. Johnson had, there was a second part.
With the security cuts, presently we have 5 civilian security and 1 off-duty, and this will go down to 4 civilian security and 1 off-duty. So we still will maintain having our off-duty officers within the high schools. We'll be down 1 civilian security. And as Ms. Johnson said, the schools will have to have a plan to make sure that those folks are in the locations that are at those high-risk locations, and that those folks are readily accessible to the needs of the building.
Just a quick, and I apologize, I don't mean to filibuster this, but so middle schools will have 2, correct? 1 off-duty and 1 regular, except Lincoln Magnet will have just the off-duty. Now, is the off-duty officer at Lincoln there all day long from the beginning? Is this a security person that is on? I don't know how it works, to be completely honest. They are there, and they provide security at that school from right before school till after school? Okay.
Okay. Any more on that section? Mr. McFarland.
Yeah, number 9, quickly. On the post-secondary coaches, understanding that there's going to be an impact, how are we going to, is there a plan to redistribute those student services somewhere else in the high schools? Is it going to go to APs, teachers, what?
To deans and APs. And again, that will be a building decision on how they want to divide that position up, if they want the dean to assume that role, or if they want the APs to do that. And that will be up to the principals and their administrative team to make that placement.
Thank you.
Yes, Mrs. Johnson.
So in that regard, let's go back to that again, this chart. In pre-planning what needs to be done as roles shift, I think it should be consistent in each building, what the deans do and what the others do. Because personally, I perceive a dean as working with the student throughout the year, and that could be some of this post-secondary coaching duties too.
That's correct. The schools usually put out where their needs are in each particular building. The needs are not always the same, but I do meet with the high school principals on a very routine basis, and that can be a point of discussion for us to see how they want to structure that.
Yeah, if I can just add on to that. One thing that we have tried to do over the years is to align to as much fidelity as we possibly can our schools. And so the process generally will be very same in terms of the roles and the functions and the individuals who will be responsible for the work. So that alignment is really designed so that we can have a consistency as much as possible across the board.
Mrs. Funderburg.
While we're speaking of the post-secondary coaches, I will not support that cut. At $22,000 each, these people are a bargain. They touch hundreds of our students. They help students who would not otherwise go to college. We heard a presentation from the Landfair person who does this. More than half of his students are minority. I just don't think we can give that up, and I would really encourage you, Dr. Milton, to look back at the combinations that you're trying to try with central office staff and bust loose another $63,000, because I think we need these people for our students.
I have a follow-up on that question. Are the, Dr. Milton, are the retired teachers who are post-secondary coaches, are those positions that we are required to RIF, or do they just expire based on their contract anyway?
They generally expire.
And then are they, then they have to be renewed again? Is that how it works?
The contract fulfilled each year and then they're retired. So it's year to year. I don't think I'm coming through. They're fulfilled each year, released, and then rehired each year.
Okay, thank you.
But I have a question behind that.
Ms. Johnson?
And I see the Landfair person out there.
Mr. Ramback.
Mr. Ramback, okay, I can never think of his name. But not trying to cut him out of any money, but people are being cut out of money because they're being cut out of jobs. Why can't these job duties of the post-secondary coaches be taken on by someone else in the building, or by a young college graduate who can have a working opportunity, can get a working opportunity?
Oh, I think the advantage of the post-secondary coaches over the years has been the knowledge and experience these people bring. They're at the other end of the employment continuum, I realize that, but they have a wealth of experience, and I think they know kids, they know families, they know relationships, and that all kind of comes together when they're working with the individuals, and I think that's the beauty of that position. And yes, those duties could be reassigned, but I think the reason these positions were developed several years ago was because we wanted to do a better job in that area as we prepare kids for the post-secondary experience. And these people strictly focus on that alone and aren't pulled away from other types of activities to get this done once in a while. It's done, that is their job, and it's done extensively to help kids. So it's priorities, and if that is a priority of the board, then the principals, the high school principals, and all those folks, and then it has value and it ought to be reconsidered. I mean, that's, I think, where Ms. Funderburg is coming from. And
Well, I don't think it's, I'm not devaluing it.
No, I know.
I'm saying that maybe, I've been asked, why can't a younger person get that job? Somebody who's fresh out of college and knows what campus life is like and all that kind of stuff. Because although they've been through the system, they are a little bit detached. And as, I'm not a teacher, but as you teach people and they matriculate through schools, everybody gets to know a family, or should be getting to know families. That might increase our parental participation or involvement. I'm just saying, those people, I'm still working, okay, my regular job, but I'm not retired, and I'm not on Social Security and all that other stuff. They're not on Social Security too, I guess. But anyway, I'm just saying, giving young people an opportunity to learn something new.
there's logic to that, but I just think the experience in the system is
So who are they training to replace them? Themselves? Anybody?
Probably.
Steve, are you training anybody to follow in your footsteps? Or Mr. Ramback, I should say. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I'm just trying to see what's going to happen, you know.
going to be put to assistant principals and put to a dean, and they do not have time to do with their other chores the in-depth job that we do as post-secondary coaches. We spend, as I've said before when I've addressed, all of our hours that we spend in that building, and even after hours, are to help kids who come to us, and we lead them through the process of getting the job done. It will get done, but the amount of people that will be helped will be going downwards.
Okay, well, that's not my question, and my question is, are you training anybody to follow in your footsteps? That's my one and only question, yes or no? Okay, thank you.
Ms. Johnson, it's not an either or at the moment right now in our school district. It's a both and. And the and part are student advisory corps members that are funded by the state and the federal government. So we are working with near-peer counselors through an Illinois advising program and an Illinois student assistance program. And to answer your question, many of those ISAC Corps volunteers in our town, with our schools, as well as across the state, are in fact being trained up and are being hired at places along the way. So, you know, you have a wonderful idea, it's already in place, and our school district is already using it, and it's not costing us any additional local school district money.
$3,000 it is.
Before we move to the set of middle school cuts, in noticing the time, it's the appropriate time in our meeting for, let me finish first saying that, for someone to make a motion that we suspend, I'm blanking on our policy number, the policy that doesn't allow our votes to count if they're cast after 8:30 at night. So, Mr. McFarland, are you making that motion? I have a second by Mr. Luby. Is there any discussion? Mrs. Hammers, could you call for a voice vote, please?
McFarland?
Aye.
Mueller?
Yes.
Stoudemire?
Aye.
White?
Aye.
Funderburg?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Luby?
Aye.
That is 7 aye votes.
Okay, motion carries. Now moving to the middle school list, numbers 13 through 16. Does anyone have questions about those? I see Mrs. Funderburg's hand.
Dr. Milton, we've made clear here tonight that the high schools can use their teaching allocation to replace one of their interns. Is that also true for the middle schools?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. McFarland.
On 16 security, I just want to ask again, we got the answer, but I want to make sure it still stands. That will this reduction reduce any schools to zero security?
No.
Okay, I was just clarifying. Thank you.
Okay, so in other words, Lincoln Magnet School, Dr. Milton, will still have a security?
Yes.
Okay, great. The next set of cuts is elementary school. That would be numbers 17 through 19. Is there any discussion on those items? Mr. McFarland?
I have two questions. Question point. First one is can y'all hear me? First one's number 18. Librarians. There, I think I go. Okay. Aside from volunteers, which we've already discussed, do we have a plan on using other staff to make up for the lost library learning time? And if so, how's that going to impact curriculum?
Yes, I'll start and then I'll let the captain.
Please.
Up here. Okay. Teachers will bring their students to classes, their own classes to the library to check out books. Volunteers also would help in assisting our librarians, and also the IB coordinator. We're looking for her to serve as a librarian at moments that she can fill in over at Al's. So we're looking at finding ways to deal with this. We know that we can never, ever replace the original thing, but we're going to try to do our best to have some plan in place to help our children, because our district is committed to literacy. I just want you to know that. Ms. Ruff, you want to add to that?
No,
Thank you.
Just to follow up then, you mentioned checking out of books and keeping the cleanliness of the library, but I do know also our librarians actually teach courses during the day in terms of literacy and library usage and paper writing and what have you. So are we planning on putting that back into other coursework around the elementary school, or will that have to be cut back?
Well,
Will that have to come back because of this reduction?
yeah, great question. Our goal is to infuse those same activities and to extend the roles and responsibilities in some cases.
Mr. McFarland.
If no one else has anything on 18, I want to move on to 19. It's pretty obvious in terms of 19 consolidation of Wanless and Pleasant Hill that I've spoken up that I don't think that's the best course of action for our district. I will say that both those schools are in desperate need of upgrades and assistance, and we do need to look at if we can do that to both those schools, and if we can't, we're going to have to come back to this. But I'm concerned about the only elementary consolidations so far coming from the same neighborhood area. That's obviously my sub-district. I know those folks well. And because of that area and that need in that area in terms of the poverty level, in terms of the number of students, I think it's devastating for that area of town to have the consolidation. Now, I do know we're going to have to look at our numbers across the board, but I am deeply concerned that the only reduction so far in terms of buildings and usage is coming out of that neighborhood.
Okay, moving on to...
Before you move on.
Oh, okay. I thought everyone was finished.
Okay. And I agree with Scott. I know that you can use health, life, safety dollars to replace one classroom per classroom. And have we taken a good look at those properties? The Pleasant Hill property, I'm not sure what can be replaced there. But if we were to consolidate those two buildings, is there enough room over there on the lot where Wanless is to build a new building?
I'm not sure that is. I don't believe that has been reviewed yet as far as the plan. I believe there is room for an addition at Wanless. It would make the site very tight. If you're familiar with Wanless, the south wing, the original building has some door height issues and things like that. I hit my head. So I believe if you go east, you could probably add some rooms there. I don't know if you could go 2 buildings worth at that building. That would have to be looked at.
Also, we have to make sure, and I assume you're talking about building a new facility there. We have to make sure that that qualifies for health, life, safety to do that, and that's an extensive process.
Correct. Pleasant Hill has had some upgrades over the years before my time, but recently we upgraded the electricity there and the fire alarm. I believe it's had windows several years ago, but not to a point where they're non-functional anymore. I believe it's had a roof done over time. There was a plan many years ago to close that building. I believe I'm based on what people have told me. That was kind of voted not to.
Close Pleasant Hill, I remember that. But I'm just thinking, visualizing that there would be space to maybe combine. I mean, what other school is in that area? And can we take a look? I don't know if the school construction people have taken a good look, I can't remember that part, at the, maybe the consolidation of those two. And I know may not be the solution that everybody wants, but it might help save education in that part of town.
If you're going to do a one-for-one replacement like we did for Matheny Withrow, I don't believe Pleasant Hill would qualify for that.
No, I'm talking about maybe if we had to consolidate them at the Wanless location.
We would have to, I don't believe you would be able to use health, life, safety funds to build that addition.
Okay, I don't know, would you check it out?
Yes, we can check that out.
Okay.
Mr. McFarland.
Ms. Johnson reminded me of a follow-up I had that I forgot to mention. And as I kind of mentioned this in December, has there been any look at, if we had to triage these buildings, obviously Pleasant Hill is the one that most need to work, and I may lose half my claps for saying this, but if we had to relocate the Pleasant Hill students, have we looked at the boundaries around the area to see if maybe Wanless can't handle the entire influx, but Wilcox, Wanless, Fairview, depending on the area, to where we're only losing one building and not both buildings?
Yeah, there was some discussion on that, Ms. Cronk.
We honestly approached this from a different standpoint. We were thinking not of dividing up all the kids because we felt that would be more difficult for the staffs and students. And so our original thoughts about this was that you could literally pick up both of the staffs and students and just relocate them into that building and not have to do all the rebounding and everything so that you could bring the school families together into one big family. That was our original sort of premise for all this.
Thank you.
Moving on to, now then to programs, that would be numbers 20, 21, and 22. Is there any discussion on those?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Somewhere along the line, there is a proposal out there to increase athletic fees. Can we do that without going to the legislature to ask for an increase in fees?
Well, we know that our low-income students, I hate using that term, but those students will be exempt to the increase, and this would just impact those students that are. Can you guys hear me? Okay, we're going to get this thing right. We really are. She was asking about the athletic fees, and if we have to go through the legislature to get the increase of those fees. And only thing that we have to be responsive to is that we can't increase the fees for the students who are considered low income. But with the students who are not, we can impose that.
Any further discussion?
I'm not sure that's right.
I have one quick
Mr.
request.
Mr. Luby?
Since I talked about this at the last meeting about reducing the athletic budget, I would like to, since there's not as much time sensitivity there in terms of positions, that we make that an agenda item for the near future. And I appreciate Dr. Milton getting us the information on how funds are allocated into where, but I would like to discuss it further, so I'd like to make that request this evening to put that on an agenda and look at finding some more potential savings in the athletic budget.
Okay. And we are all, the entire board, everyone wants to do that for the next board meeting? Is there any objection to that?
I'm confused. Are you saying you want to continue with the vote, including this cut, and then you'd like to discuss further cuts at a future meeting? Or do you mean you want to you're going to make a motion?
What you just said.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, great. I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Okay, the other section, numbers 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, and 29. Does anyone have any questions on those?
I do.
Mr. Luby?
On 24, non-classroom teaching position, 180 days, I, as well as I'm sure other board members, received some correspondence from the social workers, and they had an alternative thing they discussed called trade days that wouldn't cost the district any money if they were able to utilize that. They know, I think they're getting cut 10 days a year. Is that something the district is looking at, allowing them to use those trade days that they can do at no cost?
That has not arrived at the cabinet table as of yet. However, we do have a director of student support services, Ms. Baker.
Can you hear me? Okay. Just as Dr. Milton said, that's not something that we've discussed at this time, but we would be willing to take a look at that. We've used trade days in the past in addition to the days that they have listed here. Okay. Well, I mean, it's basically what it said. You trade out for a different time. So if you have maybe additional days that services are needed, or whether there's things that are worked past the contract days, then you're able to trade during your school year for that time off.
I don't think that, what Ms. Whitehead asked, she asked for the definition of trade days. Thank you, Ms. Baker.
The audience didn't hear it. No, you're fine. Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Luby.
And I also want to add that this is another, talked about it earlier and about the value of, this is one of those areas, and I know a few years ago, social workers came up as a cut, and the board at that time really pushed hard to make sure it got kept in there. I think this is going to be a cut that's going to hurt the district, much like a lot of them, but I think with some of the numbers that they're talking about and adding the cases, again, this is not a classroom teaching position, but I've seen firsthand what our social workers do in our schools and how they make education possible for a lot of kids. This is going to be especially hurtful, but again, it's one of those I think we have to do. And if they have a way of at least softening the blow, I really would encourage the district to look at what they're talking about here. Thank you.
Mrs. Johnson.
Okay, that's $300,000 for textbooks. We have cut textbook allocation ever since I've been on this board. So can somebody tell me what we're at now? Never been increased. Not one time in the 10, 11 years I've been on the board. It's always been decreased.
I'm not sure if they can hear. The 300,000 is to cover the books that we currently need to adopt for AP classes. But beyond that, it will not cover any other books.
Okay, so how are those kids that are taking AP classes going to get the information that they need? Are they all equipped with computers?
No, the 300,000 does cover the purchase of the AP books. It's just that we cut the budget back to where it will not be any excess in there for additional. So we looked at the budget and said, okay, what is it we absolutely have to have? Our consumables, the AP books, and that's what we allocated for.
And so what is, this is a list of cuts here, right? So what are we spending on those items?
The 300,000 will cover the AP textbooks for our high school U.S. history.
No, this yeah, it reads as if on our sheet, I think what Ms. Johnson, Ms. Mueller are both noticing is it reads as if it's a $300,000 cut.
I'm sorry. It is, okay, what we did was we looked at what we had to cut, and we did give up the 300,000, I'm sorry. So it used to be 700,000.
Yeah.
700,000.
There's still money existing there.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and basically, what that would do for us, it would allow us to purchase, with those allocated dollars, books that we need.
Correct.
And then it also would give us time to be ready if a new textbook adoption comes up in the future.
But, I mean, we cut. Aren't we behind in some areas?
Very much. We used to receive $1 million from State Board of Education each year, but those fundings have been cut as well, so we're trying to piecemeal as we can.
Okay, so the $700,000 that remains is from ISB?
No, we receive no funds from ISB. Everything is out of our 110 account.
Mr. McFarland.
I have two questions. First one's 25, reduced number of days for teaching assistants and special education attendants. I had a couple folks ask me about their extra training days that they're required to have for those positions. How are we going to factor in the training days with reduced days?
Well, I think that what we're going to look at is really having training opportunities that are specifically designed for them. Some of the trainings that they attend now are the school improvement days, and some of those things may not be relevant.
Okay. And on 26, reduction by 10%. This is a question that came up in one of those FICI meetings at Lanphier, and that is, when we factor in that allocation to each school, do we calculate, especially in the high schools, if one or two high schools may have different free and reduced rates than another one, therefore having to pay more for, say, lab equipment that fees would have covered at another school, as an example?
Mr. Basco, can you talk about the capital outlay on this one, please?
No, those allocations are based strictly on a per pupil basis across the board.
So there's no factoring in if one area is needing more support. My mic just died, I think, okay.
No,
There's no factoring in, it's all per capita.
There's not.
Has there been any discussion ever of looking at that instead of a per capita rate, looking at free reduced or what have you?
Not that I'm aware of.
I'd like to see what maybe those numbers would look like down the road.
Okay.
Mr. McFarland, I know that we have requests, and sometimes I know it's getting late, and I would just ask the board, because we don't want to lose sight of the request, we want to definitely respond to them. If you'll be kind enough to just send me an email so that we can capture those things and get everything out to you.
Happen to have my email open.
Thank you. And you're very good at that, by the way.
I tend to be.
Okay, so the final group is captioned "Previous action taken or no action necessary," 30, 31, and 32. So if we've already taken action or no actions necessary, is there any need for discussion on this? Does anyone have any? Mr. McFarland?
One piece of clarification on 32. Depending on how this vote goes, the 75%, will that have any effect at all on the recharter discussion that's ongoing?
No, I don't think so.
They've always agreed to have their allocation cut for next year to the 75%.
Yeah, from 80%.
Okay,
Back
so
in
even
their
if the
proposal.
board, even if for some reason, I don't think it would happen, but even if the board voted no to this reduction, it's still going forward in the recharter. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, as far as I know, yes. I mean, that's in their proposal.
Just clarifying it's redundant, okay.
Yeah.
That's still up to negotiation, though. 75% is part of our negotiated package. So to vote on it tonight would be quite redundant, because it is part of the charter agreement necessary. So it's still in pending negotiation.
Right, and these are under the ones that are already action taken, so.
Well, it's included on the list of things that'll be voted on tonight, although since they're specifically listed as previous action taken, my assumption it would just be then through number 29. Is that right, Dr. Milton?
Well, I know that the way that it was brought back to my office is that the conversation had ensued, and that agreement was cast. Am I correct on that, Mr. Basco? Yes.
I missed that.
There will be action on that.
Oh, there will be action on that, Dr. Milton says.
So we are voting on something that's currently negotiated with the charter school?
Start negotiation.
Oh, Rob says we can't vote on those three.
Actually, we cannot vote on those three. Okay.
And number 33, trades, furlough days, is that something that has been negotiated, or is that a vote that will be taken, included with the vote?
We are currently doing 6 furlough days for our trades workers. We have been doing it for a couple of years.
So your intent then is just to continue, that? Okay. Yes, Mr. McFarland.
I just have one final comment kind of on the whole thing. And I requested prior to the agenda's release that each of these budget recommendations being discussed and voted on individually. The request was denied. I requested the same thing once the agenda had been made public. The request was denied. I then requested that we be allowed to break out certain items from the recommendation so that we'd be allowed to discuss and vote individually. That request was denied. I made one final request tonight. That request was denied. My fellow board members are well in their right to disagree with me on this, but I have a fundamental issue with voting on these items as a block. If you look back at the record, you will see that I've never voted against one piece of a resolution while still voting for the entire resolution. I don't believe that allows for adequate public oversight, and that is needed for an elected board. Following my personal policy, I cannot. Can I please finish my statement? I have the floor.
Your recommendation, and we've already voted on it. You made it as a motion.
Madam President, I have
There
the
was a
floor.
second. No, you can't. You've already had this discussion. You've already made your motion.
I'm making a comment on the entire recommendation now, if you let me finish.
No, actually, no. You're going back and you're talking about something that
That was the
you've
first paragraph.
already.
I'm now into the second, and I have a comment on the entire recommendation, if you would let me finish.
That would be fine, but we will not consider it again when it's already been voted on.
Okay. Following the personal policy that I have, I cannot in good conscience vote for a resolution that includes a closure of 2 schools that are the lifeblood of a neighborhood. I cannot in good conscience vote for a resolution that includes eliminating the last few librarians that we have in our elementary schools. I cannot in good conscience vote against a resolution that, or for a resolution that eliminates programs that support children that are in need of them the most. So I'm happy to present to anyone at any time my opinions on each of these items, and I will continue to call for needed reductions throughout the process along with needed revenues and reserve allocations, but I will not be voting for these two resolutions as they were presented tonight. Thank you.
Please call for a vote, and board members, when you register your vote, if you have a no on any piece of this resolution, if you would please, for Mrs. Hammer's benefit, call out the number and the title of that no vote.
Mueller? Yes, but no on number 9, post-secondary coaches, number 18, librarians, and number 22, IMSA. Thank you.
9, 18, and 22, Mrs. Mueller?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Stoudemire?
I'm an aye, with the exception of a no on number 2, bricklayers, laborers. Number 9, post-secondary coaches. Number 12, security. Number 13, teaching positions at the middle schools. 16, security. 18, librarians, and 19, consolidation.
Thank you. White?
I am an aye, with the exception of number 9, post-secondary coaches. Number 18, librarians. And that's it.
Thank you, Mrs. White. Thunderbird?
My vote is aye with the following exceptions. Number 9, no. Number 13, no. Number 22, no. Number 24, I'm going to abstain until we get further information.
Thank you, Mrs. Thunderbird. Johnson?
I'm a no, with the exception of number 9, I'm a yes. And that would be it.
Is that all, Mrs. Johnson? No, Ms. Johnson, are you finished voting?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Did you not hear?
I heard you say no on everything except for number 9, which you're a yes on.
Right.
Thank you. Luby?
Aye.
McFarland?
Nay.
Okay, just one moment, please, while I compile these. Yeah, 9 is a no. 18 is a no. That is 6 aye votes, 1 no vote. Number 9, post-secondary coaches, is voted down, as is number 18, librarians.
Okay, number 9.4, I have,
Mrs. White?
oh, yes, ma'am.
Sorry. Also, number 13 is voted down.
Can you state, please, Ms. Hammers, what that is?
I'm sorry.
Do you mind stating what number 13 is, please?
Yes, I'm sorry, 13 is teaching positions at Franklin, Jefferson, Grant, Lincoln, and Washington. And 22 also IMSA is voted down. So the four that were voted down, let me go over those again.
Yes, and Ms. Hammers, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Okay. The four items that have been voted down are post-secondary coaches, number 9. Number 13, teaching positions in middle schools. Number 18, librarians. And number 22, IMSA. Cuts to these have been voted down.
I'd like to request a total of how much that did not get voted on.
I could not hear you, Mr. Luby.
Can you give us a total on what was put back into the budget?
Yes, one moment, please.
Okay, so it's going to be...
Good job tonight.
That removes a total of $966,300 from the cuts.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. For item 9.4, we have 7 speakers on number 1. I will start with Addison Miller, and after that will be Michael Weicker.
Hi, I'm Addison Miller. I have been going to CCPA for 2 years, and it really has changed me. Before I went to AEC Central in Ashland, the teachers used to yell at us for doing something wrong, like tripping in a hallway or saying something wrong. Our math teacher would just give us the lesson and make us do it ourselves. At CCPA, Miss Empson and Mr. Miller rarely yell at us or raise their voices. Mr. Miller goes through the lesson with us, and he can laugh at us, and we can make jokes with him, and he talks with us about any problems we have. Mr. Miller is like a second father for me. He always shows he cares. Miss Simpson treats us like her own children. She always shows she cares by talking with us about our problems and coming to our games or events we have. And she's always cheering us on. No matter what we do wrong, she always helps us with it. She never gives up on us. And when we are learning a lesson, she makes sure all of us learn it. She puts in extra time every day helping kids in any grade. She is one of the many teachers that make up our family at CCPA. After all that I said, Miss Mill and Miss Simpson, aka our school mom, make us all feel like a family, and that's why I like about CCPA, and that's why I wouldn't go to any other school in the world. Thank you.
Michael Weicker, and following Michael will be Logan Tulipana. Did I pronounce your name right? Okay.
Michael Weicker. I am a scholar at CCPA. I struggled in elementary with my grades and behavior, but since I've been at CCPA, I have made honor roll and have way better behavior. One of my reasons that I don't want you to close it is that there are smaller class sizes, which means that each kid gets more individual time with the teacher to learn. We stay with our same teachers for all of middle school, so it helps us even more because we don't have to go from one teacher doing something and then the other doing something else. Capital College Preparatory Academy has not just helped me with my academics or behavior, but it's helped me personally. I can control my anger much more now than I ever could before. I have learned to ignore people who do not support me and focus on the lesson and task that we're doing. I know my mom and my teachers are really proud of me, but most of all, I'm proud of myself. I believe that I can do anything I want to do if I put my mind to it. Please don't close my school. It would be a shame if other kids don't get the chance I got. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you.
I also have some other letters from kids in my class, but they couldn't make it tonight to speak. Yeah. Yeah.
Get those from him, please. Logan, you're next. And then, I don't see any other students. Stacy Larson will be after you.
Hi, my name is Logan Tulipana. I'm in the 7th grade at CCPA. I have stood in front of you before, and I won't take much of your time tonight. I want to, again, let you know how much CCPA means to the scholars. Many of us struggled in grade school, myself included, but now we are thriving, and it is due to the staff and teachers at CCPA. We are all devastated that you may vote to close our school. Please vote to keep our school open so we can continue to grow and reach our goal of attending college.
Stacy Larson, yes, you're next, and then Shelley Tulipana follows you.
Hi, I'm Stacy Larson, and I did send this letter to each of the board members over the weekend, but I just wanted to make sure a couple of the things that I mentioned in the letter were said here tonight. First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for all the time and effort that you've put into really looking at the budget. This is a really daunting task, and I don't envy you the decisions you have to make. But I just wanted to say that after 17 years in teaching, I was burnt out, and I didn't know if this was what I wanted to continue to do with my life. But coming here to 186 and coming to CCPA has renewed my faith in what we can do to change kids' lives. I think that what we do at CCPA is so important, not just for our kids here in this community of Springfield, but for every student. Our two teacher teams who loop with the same scholars from grades 6 through 8 create a very developmentally responsive, caring community. We're committed to the social and emotional development of the young adolescents that are under our charge, and I think that not that every teacher in this district doesn't care about that for their students, but I think our structure really helps support that. Also, our integrated, differentiated approach to curriculum is very focused on the individual. And again, I don't think that not every teacher wants this for their kid. I think they do, but I think our structures really support that. As a society, we're going to continue to see our standing diminished in the world if we persist in the same educational models that we have used for the last 100 years. I think that we can use what we've learned here at CCPA to spread out to other ideas in the district, but I also think that our structures in our small community are very beneficial for all of our students, especially those who tend to be underrepresented within our system, not just here, but in the American school system. So I'm just asking that you please continue to support the forward-looking Capital College Preparatory Academy. I think that we can find a way to persist even in this environment, and I really appreciate your support, as do our scholars and the community and the future of Springfield. So thank you very much.
Ms. Tulipana is next, and after you're finished, the speaker will be Sherry Garr.
Hi, good evening. My son is in the 7th grade at CCPA, and my daughter plans to attend there in the 6th grade next year. All three of us are heartbroken to hear that you are possibly going to recommend closing this school. When my son was in the 5th grade, we realized that he would not be attending the middle school that is within walking distance to our home. He would have been bused to a school that we were against him attending for various reasons. He had been bullied in grade school and teased when he was pulled out to get help when he was struggling in several subjects. Several people, including teachers, security officers, and friends, had told us that he would not do well at his home school. I was told that he would not be able to get a transfer. Therefore, we started looking at our options. We looked at private schools, Lincoln Magnet, Ball Charter, and CCPA. We loved what we found at CCPA. We have not once been disappointed or regretful of our choice. That is, of course, until now. We are so appreciative of the teachers, Mr. Colgren, and the staff at CCPA. The atmosphere is like a family, and they all know my child very well. I cannot imagine getting that at a school when he would be seeing multiple teachers daily for 50 minutes at a time. My son has excelled at CCPA in all ways possible, academically, socially, and personally. He is now getting A's and B's, has a great bunch of friends, and is a leader within his class. I am truly sickened to think that he is going to be ripped away from his friends, teachers, and the school that he loves. We were made a promise when we made our decision to attend CCPA that the school would be 6th through 12th grade. This alleviated many hours of worry over our children's well-being and education. I worry about the transition, as I'm sure many other parents do. I have seen the scores and heard the testimonials. A lot of these scholars were not succeeding in grade school. They are succeeding at CCPA. There is the risk of these children regressing and being lost in a system that hasn't worked for them in the past. I have been very involved with the school as a volunteer and as a member of the PTA. I spoke with the principal at my child's home school, only to find that they don't have a PTA or much parent involvement. Children have better success when the parents are involved. This is a proven fact. I know how my child is doing due to good communication with his teachers. I can easily contact his teachers or Mr. Colgren. Not only do they know who my child is, but they know who I am. I ask you honestly if you think this is what's best for the children of District 186. I am 100% sure that it's not. I am begging you to not balance the budget on the backs of the children that are the future of this community. Don't close a school that is actually succeeding and doing what it was designed to do. Thank you.
Sherry Garr is next, and then the final speaker on this topic is Chris Colgren.
And the last name is actually Gary. I'm a parent of 2 students at CCPA, an 8th grader and a 6th grader. My story is not like other parents. My students didn't want to go to CCPA. But as a parent, I saw the opportunity for my sons to advance and learn in an atmosphere that was so different than any other learning environment in the Springfield area. I know that budget cuts are hard, and there are never clear winners. But for the students of CCPA, there are clear losers. I have been at nearly every budget review committee meeting and school board meetings, and hear from other parents from other schools stating that the parents of CCPA students really don't care because they are not there, but that is not the case. Many of the families at the school do not have the means to get to the meetings as other parents. CCPA has 80% students that meet the free or reduced lunch program standards. Many of them are the disenfranchised and the underrepresented of our community that have very little voice when it comes to politics in this town. But these parents are passionate for their children and want the best for them just like any other parent. The program at CCPA has shown remarkable results. The students there were categorized as underperformers, those that would just make it through school without any real future. But because of the teachers and faculty dedicated to these students, they are thriving and making advancements far beyond what was ever expected of them. The first year, the school had 92.5% of the students meeting or exceeding standards, which is quite an accomplishment. If the school closes, what will happen to these students? Will they be lost in the mix again, just passing them along? Why can't this program be implemented in an existing middle school or carried on to one of our high schools? We all want a great learning experience for our students, but with the closure, I do not believe that will be true for everyone. We as parents were sold a bill of goods. But with that, little by little, it has been whittled away. No mentoring, no high school, no tracking through college. So we were given a false hope with no way to pay for it due to poor budgeting and along with sagging economy.
Mr. Cole?
President White and members of the board, as principal of the Capital College Preparatory Academy, I am very proud of the effort and accomplishments of my staff over the past 3 years. I do not, however, stand before you this evening in an effort to protect our own personal interests or positions. Tonight I am advocating for the children that we serve at the Academy. Our scholars, like all children, are important, unique, wonderful, brilliant individuals. Like all of us, they face distinct challenges in their lives. For many, their full potential was left undiscovered as a result of traditional schooling practices. This should not be interpreted as an admonishment of any other program, but rather as validation that there is a need to provide children with educational options. As educators, we purport that all children can learn. Yet we are continually faced with disparities in academic outcomes. In fact, the term achievement gap is recognized as perhaps the most pressing and perplexing issue in 21st century education. Across this nation, school districts discuss the achievement gap at length, but few propose practical solutions. We have offered our solution to the problem. The Capital College Preparatory Academy is a research-based program designed to prepare all scholars for post-secondary access and success. As a result of initiatives including gender-based classrooms, looping, and an emphasis on STEM education, we have created a community of achievers. At the Academy, we address the achievement gap not as a problem of competence or capability, but rather one of opportunity. By exposing all scholars to rigorous college preparatory curriculum, we provide valuable academic content knowledge while sending a clear message that we believe in the potential of every child. Every scholar we serve is recognized for his talents and held to high, uncompromising academic standards. By committing to excellence, our scholars are discovering the full potential that resides in each and every one of them. The Academy has inculcated a belief in academic success in our scholars. Our data demonstrates high achievement as a result of strong individual growth amongst the children we serve. In addition to their current academic accomplishments, our scholars regularly communicate a desire to succeed in college and career. 3 years ago, the vast majority of our incoming scholars did not know what engineers did. Today, as 8th graders, the same children will tell me that they will be civil engineers, mechanical engineers, or aeronautical engineers. The long-term impact of the Capital College Preparatory Academy will be profoundly positive for our children, for our school district, and for our community. To those who question whether or not we can currently afford this program, I argue that we cannot afford not to continue a program of this ilk. Certainly not if we are to remain committed to educating all children. I thank you for your time this evening.
Then next, the final two speakers have signed up to speak about item number 2. First, Michael Little, and following Michael Little, David Noteful.
Hi, I just wanted to thank the board and Dr. Milton. Obviously, tonight's a tough night. All of you have tough decisions, and I know that you've all been working on this for the last year and a half because I've been pretty much at all the meetings. So also wanted to thank all of you for making the effort to come out and visit our students and families at Isles. As the PTO president at Isles and the father of 2 daughters at Isles, I can just tell you that Isles is a school that is bringing families into our community. And so really what I wanted to talk to you tonight about is choice. Choice is what keeps me and my family here, and it's really what's brought all of our families from Isles. Most of the families at Isles, or a lot of them, are families that have moved from Peoria, Chicago, outside of the state, so that they could work here in Springfield and have their kids attend one of the top ranking schools here in the state of Illinois. Tonight we have to make some important decisions. They're not easy. And you guys, by the way, do a great job. I haven't always agreed with all of you, but you guys do a great job. You put in the time, you put in the effort, you've listened to the calls, so tonight's not an easy night. We all know that. The thing that I want you guys to remember is that a school like Isles, and by having choice in our community, by having great middle schools like Lincoln Magnet and Franklin and Isles, this attracts families to Springfield. It keeps tax dollars here, which helps our community grow. By taking away a school like Isles, you're taking people out of our community. So I would just ask that you think about, this is the one thing tonight, we're talking about cuts. Isles is essentially a free program. It's the top-ranked middle school, elementary school in the state of Illinois outside of Chicago. It's generating revenue for our district, so consider that, think about that. And again, I just want to thank all of you for the time, the effort that you all do for our community. And just want to state one thing for the record. I read something in the paper about the Community Budget Review Board being our voice. I attended all their meetings. They are not our voice. You're our voice. We elect you. We appreciate the job that you do, and just want to thank you again for all that you guys do for Springfield. So please keep Isles, and we appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
Mr. Noteful.
Hello everyone, my name is Dave Nofel and I'm a teacher over at Franklin Middle School. I've been teaching there for 20 years and this is my 10th year teaching the gifted magnet part, 7th grade, Algebra 1. I just want to say that based on the discussion, Franklin Middle School is a great opportunity for any gifted student that meets the criteria to come to Franklin Middle School. The teachers, we've all had gifted training. We've all been certified and qualified to teach our area of expertise. We don't get looped into other teaching other things that are not in our, I'm sorry, this is kind of nervous for me, but I'll keep going. I just want to say that none of us teach outside of our area, okay? When I started 10 years ago, we had 50 students in the 7th grade class. Now this year, after 13 years, we have 106 6th graders, we have 92 7th graders, and we have 61 8th graders for a total of 260 students just in the Gifted Magnet program alone. Next year we have an enrollment of 86 6th graders coming in. Last year, the enrollment was 220. I talk with high school teachers quite a bit, and they tell me, teachers from all over the district, high school teachers, that Franklin Middle School does a really good job in transferring students from the middle school setting to high school. They say that our students are prepared, especially in the field of math. I want to talk to you about what we do now for our 6th grade students. Any student that comes into Franklin Middle School is pre-tested. They're either taking the pre-algebra class, or if they perform well on the pre-test, they're put into the Algebra 1 class. Currently, I have 3 6th graders who are taking Algebra 1 and doing quite well. Their 7th grade year, they would take Algebra 2. Their 8th grade year, they take geometry class. We have 2 math teachers that are certified to teach high school math. This year, we have 2 8th graders that are taking the geometry curriculum. Last year, we had 2 8th graders take the geometry curriculum. One of them is now at EMSA, and the other one is taking pre-calc as a freshman over at Springfield High School and doing quite well. 2 years ago, we had another student. Does that mean time's up? Okay, I just wanted to say that whatever happens, we will meet the needs of any gifted child that comes to Franklin Middle School from wherever.
Mr.
Noteful?
Mr. Newful? Mr. Newful? Hello? You stated that you had how many students in the 6th grade class right now?
107.
107?
Yep.
And you have how many in the 8th grade?
Currently, we have 61.
Okay. You're gonna get mad at me, but I don't care. You have 107 students in the 6th grade, and only 3 of them qualify to take algebra?
In the 6th grade,
That's what
they
you said.
take, the pre-test is the pre-algebra test, the final exam for pre-algebra. If they pass it, then they go on to Algebra 1.
Okay, so you have, these 3 are in Algebra 1? Okay. And then you have 2 8th graders who are in geometry? Okay. I needed to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, so I will, pardon me?
Whenever I want to make a comment, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Well, go ahead. Dr. Milton, go ahead.
I just want to just kind of give my quick statement on the topic of discussion that we just heard. I remember 4 years ago, actually, let me back up, 6 years ago, when I was making the transition to come here, and one of the compelling claims was that we wanted to deliberately put together various models that would address and begin to aggressively attempt closing the achievement gap. And we also realized that there's a high probability that that gap could be responded to if the opportunity gaps is developed or closed. And we believe that you have to marry the cognitive and the affect. And I think that CCPA has really and truly exemplified that. 4 years ago, when we decided to respond to the aggressive questions that the board members had, and we were approved, we said that it is our epoch, the dawn of our new beginning. It's going to definitely begin to set a standard in Springfield Public Schools. But now we're faced with the dawn of a possible ending. And those are two distinct contrasts. And one thing that's really evident, that not only through the editorials that we've heard tonight, but one thing that's really evident with CCPA is taking the demographic data that so many of us listen to. And I think that this is a great example of dismantling that data. When we don't have the ability or the luxury to look where our children are currently, but to look at what they can actually become. And I think that this is a shining example no matter what happens tonight. And I do want to publicly thank all of those people, the board members that really supported this vision, the parents that had the faith and the desire to entrust their children in our hands. I want to thank you for believing in us. And I want to thank our faculty and staff who saw that we can't educate a child simultaneously because they're like flowers. And we know that all flowers don't bloom at the same time. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your countless hours of commitment. Mr. Colgren, you know, we've had many late nights together when we convinced each other that we have to believe in this mission, even when those people around us may have a belief that's altered. We continue this. And I want to thank you for your relentless leadership, despite of all of the attacks and the adversaries that you had to face along the way. And I just want to share that with this community, that not only did we make an attempt, we were successful in that attempt. And I know that we are facing the possibility of an ending, where we're started with an epoch, a dawn of a new beginning. And so I just want to share that with this community at large, that we did it. And if we're going to allow the whole notion of fiscal reality to impact us, it was quite evident tonight that we had some things that we had decreased recommendations of $900,000. I think that this is worth it. And I hope that the board members can really take a deep look and make a decision, not only based on what's right for children, but based on their own conscience. Thank you very much.
So the resolution is approval of a resolution regarding the recommendations from the Community Budget Review Committee. The Community Budget Review Committee compiled reduction recommendations, and the attached list.
Speak into the mic, Susan, can't hear you.
Should I start over?
No.
The attached list only includes the recommendations that are not included in the district's recommendations. It was my choice to put this item on the agenda for this evening. I believe that there are many anxious community members who have been coming to board meeting after board meeting. We've had a committee that spent hours of their time analyzing our recommendations. And I think it's time to give our board member our feedback as board members. So do I have a motion on the recommendation?
So moved.
Moved.
However,
moved by Mrs. Mueller.
Mrs. White?
Yes.
I would like to move it, but it's my understanding, I'm not sure what the chart looks like. Dr. Milton, there's changes to the chart?
Yes, actually, we are removing items 11 and 12.
Thank you, Mrs. Mueller.
Yes.
And not 5?
No, five is not on the list.
So 11 and 12 removed. I make a motion with those two noted removals.
Okay, so moved by Mrs. Mueller with the noted, her noted removals of items number 11 and 12. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mrs. Funderburg. Do I have any discussion?
Yeah.
Mr. Stoudemire was first, and then Ms. Johnson will be after that.
Thank you, President White. Dr. Melton, in the event that CCPA would be cut, could you share with all of us what kind of transitional help that you could give the scholars from CCPA to get back into the middle schools around the city?
Well, they would have the opportunity to attend their home middle schools. I think that that's a responsibility that we have as a school system. But there's no way, shape, form, or fashion that I could honestly say this evening that those young people would receive the experience to fidelity that they've experienced. I think that there would have to be some intensive modification in the schools in which they attend to give them consistency from the things that they've learned from a holistic standpoint. When we talk about the cognitive, the social, the emotional, the physical, the linguistic, all of those things that make these young scholars whole. I think that that would be impossible. And so I can't say that we will be successful in that endeavor because there's an extreme high probability that those young people would go back to experiencing some things. I think that many efforts will take place to do what's right and what's noble because I think overall we have a good system. But again, it goes back to that flower that I alluded to. They don't all bloom simultaneously.
Mrs. Johnson.
As many of you know, I've said that when I was one of the ones who had to be convinced about CCPA. But I have, over these last couple of years, come to love those students who attend CCPA and their staff. I mean, these people work hard. These children have been challenged and have met the challenge. These are children who would otherwise fall through the gap. I say this, and it's been on my mind all night. Jim, are you getting this? Pay attention, please. That this is a program that should not be cut. This program is helping students learn. They are helping them to learn social, living, educational, just in every way possible. They've developed manners. They've learned that people do care about them. Their self-worth is being enhanced. And we have a group up here of elitists who don't live in that neighborhood, who go to that neighborhood only because they want to try to justify that they can take a vote to cut this school out. These kids are learning. They are having opportunities to do things that otherwise they never would have. If they're in a regular middle school setting, there's a great probability, extenuating probability, that no one will give them the personal attention that they need to learn and to enhance their skills and to encourage them to do their best at all times. Now, I have a middle schooler grandchild, and to me it is obvious he's not in the Springfield Public Schools, unfortunately, at this point, hopefully to get him in here, that you can just tell that he is not being encouraged to do his best. I could pull up his report card or his progress report for you, and this is a student who started out, who went to IELTS for a couple years, okay? But he's in a different district in a different state. But if he were here and he were in that CCPA program, he would be the A student, all right? But no, these cold-hearted people want to cut this program out that is helping children, and I can't be a party to it.
I have a couple numbers questions. First one, for number one, we have on here 1.7 million. Does that include the increased class sizes that the board just voted for? I'm guessing not.
What did she say?
I don't know. Do you have an answer, Dr. Milton?
Mr. McFarland.
Does the 1.7 million factor in the increased class sizes that the board just voted for?
The 330,000.
Yeah, so I mean,
That's in there, right? That's in the
is that factored in? If not, this actual reduction would be 1.368 million.
Right, that's not, to my knowledge, that is not.
Okay, so we're looking at $1.368 million, $500. Next question with the factoring, does this number include the cost to reallocate class sizes at other schools that these students will be going back to?
Okay, say, Miss, I'm sorry, Miss
Does
Ruff?
this
No,
allocation...
hold the phone, sir.
I'm sorry.
Ms. Ruff, what were you saying?
CCPA was its own line item.
I guess the question is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that are we taking in consideration the impact that classroom size increase when these kids go back to homeschools? Are we taking on that impact? Is that your question?
Yes.
Yeah. Has that been factored in to these calculations?
Okay. So that reduces the number more. Next question in terms of number 2, same idea. Have we factored in with this $100,000 estimated savings the cost of moving these children to Franklin? Based on the numbers I've heard, I'm assuming we're going to have to at least put 1 or 2 more teachers at Franklin to cover the spread. Does that factor that in?
No.
No. Okay, thank you.
You're saying it does.
The committee chair says it does.
Oh, I'm hearing yes and no now?
Mr. Basco, do we?
I believe the 1.7 million is to cut.
Just cut.
Everything, yes.
Okay, so actually, since we've increased class sizes, one would be $368,500. But that doesn't factor in the cost to reallocate these children to their home schools. Along with that, the $100,000 for transferring Isles to Franklin does not factor in reallocating those students to Franklin, which would require more staff. Correct on both points? So therefore, we're looking at a reduction. Therefore, we're looking at a reduction of $2,872,114 fuzzy, probably to be less than that. Okay, thank you.
This is none. I saw you shaking your head. Are the numbers different than?
When we did the calculations for CCPA Isles, it came from the HR department, and they included what Mr. McFarland was saying. We took into consideration those students back to school, what the net cut would be. So those numbers came from HR and Dr. Kajaku at that time.
That's the net savings other than the $300,000 that needs to be backed out. So CCPA would go from 1.7 to 1.3, Isles somewhere around 100,000. And that includes transportation.
You said 50 to 100.
You said 50 to 100.
That's what he said.
Okay, I yield back. Thanks.
The numbers were never clear. The numbers were never clear.
Any other comments? I'm sorry, Mr. Luby.
I just want to say, in terms of CCPA, I've never been a strong proponent of magnet schools and charter schools and carving out niche schools, but if there is one reason to do it, and the original reason that they moved into magnet schools and charter schools was to address specific populations with specific ways of educating. I was concerned that this was, and it shouldn't be that you get into a school because your ticket was called. I know we have, every school district has those too, but in terms of CCPA, I was concerned about this, Dr. Milton, as you know, when we put the school together, that it was going to become another one of those lottery, draw your ticket and you're a winner type schools. And on that committee, we discussed how these students were going to be identified, what we were going to do with the students when they got there, and that it wasn't going to be that way, and it hasn't turned out that way. As far as I'm concerned, this is a model for the way niche schools should work. It does achieve I'm not doing this, thank you, but I'm not grandstanding because I'm not running this year, but I do want to say that in my mind, this is exactly what we need to do. And it's a dark day. If we reverse ourselves like we so often do, and have over the last few years and did again tonight, and then go and cut this school in February for the next year, this school that is actually doing what it's intended for the population that it's intended, I just believe that we're really doing the wrong thing, and it's a sad day. It really is. So. And the only other item I did want to, the other thing that, and I mentioned this to Dr. Milton earlier, as far as I've been confused and about the Isles, Franklin, the whole thing since I've started here, even before I started on the board. Never, honestly, I'm sorry, but a huge believer or proponent in gifted education. I voted for it. I voted for the creation of the Isles Middle School because I figured it was something successful and it should be continued. But I don't understand it. I'll be the first to tell you. I mean, I don't think we need to gather all the smart kids in our town and put them in one school or two schools. But again, I'm going to vote to keep Isles, but what I do believe we need in this district, and I won't be here, but I'll certainly come and help, is I think we need somebody to come in from the outside and study our gifted education program in this town. Study if we're identifying the kids correctly or we're just putting smart kids in a school by themselves. Will these kids do well? Some of them in other places. I mean, it sounds like we have hundreds of gifted kids. That just sounds, it sounds like it's not, realistic statistically for the amount of kids that we have in our district. So I would like to call for, and again, I won't be here to follow up, but hopefully we can do a study on how we do it, where it should be done, and how we bring kids into the program. And again, I'm all for, if it's working for our kids, we should continue it, but I'd like to look at that. And hopefully, Dr. Milton, that's something we can have somebody look at and give us a coherent strategy on how to go forward with it.
Thank you, Mr. Louie. Yeah, we did have a fruitful discussion because we start looking at what the true definition is. But one thing why I was really big on the Isles expansion, because I think that if we're going to have the competitive edge, we have to not always look at the way we operate our district from a traditional lens, if you will. There is some things around consistency that's really conducive for those young children, where they can have the continuum going on and not making a number of transitions, because the research is very replete in that it does have an ultimate impact on certain students. And I think this just gives our community another choice, another option. And I think that if we are not, and I've always said this, and I will continue to say it, if we are not innovative, I think that we open ourselves up for, to be victim to the choice, to the voucher the charter market, because people are looking for innovative ways and approaches to educate children. And I think that that's what we try to do, try to do different things so that we can be a system that can be creative and have specialty schools that will respond to the needs of children.
Mrs. Vanderberg. I wanted to go back, Mr. Luby, to something you said earlier. I think we can all seven agree no one up here wants to cut anything. These decisions are not easy to make. They're not made with a cold heart or an evil intent. They're made with a lot of thought and a lot of sleepless nights. It's a lot of pressure, frankly. I've looked at this CCPA thing, and I have no doubt that what you say, Mr. Colgren, and your staff is correct. I've visited there with the intent of learning about the program. I've spent time talking with your staff. I've talked with parents, people who've told me it's life-changing. The thing I come back to, though, my responsibility as a board member is to represent all of the students in the district, all 15,000 of them. And in these times of tight budgets, I don't see that we can direct resources in a way that doesn't benefit all of our students. And I think that we have to consider the needs of all of our students in prioritizing and making these tough budget decisions. So I'm unfortunately going to be voting yes on closing the academy. But I want you to know it's not a decision made easily, and I appreciate all the passion that you've brought tonight into all the other meetings.
How will the other magnet schools benefit the whole community?
Pardon me?
How will the other magnet schools benefit the whole community?
I think if you look at the percentage of students, and I've looked at this, it's 1.75% at CCPA out of our entire population. And I can't, there's no sustainability for this program. There has never been sustainability for this program. It's been peeled away layer by layer. We're now down to larger class sizes. That was the kind of last stronghold there. And I don't see that the program is as it was intended.
To teach kids, to increase learning.
Have you thought about the fact that you will lose students? Have you thought about the fact that you will lose funding and that you will not be able to have the school to say, hey, this is where we go? Because there's a lot of us who fought for the right to go to the school, and we will not be in Springfield. Why did you sit back for that? Something you might want to think about.
I'm thinking about moving to Jody Johnson's district.
I have listened to parents speak on behalf of both the Isles Middle School and the CCPA since October. I have, not only at our board meetings, but at the community meetings in school buildings and at the community budget committees meetings over at 1900. And what I've heard from parents is that what you like about CCPA and about the Isles Middle School from the social standpoint is that you enjoy having your students in a small environment. You feel that the teachers know your child's name. In many situations, you also feel that the teachers know your name and who you are when you call, and that's very reassuring to you as a parent. From the academic side, I've heard a lot of great things about CCPA and the STEM model, and I've heard a lot of wonderful things from the Isles Middle School parents about the ability to be creative within the curriculum and about the fact that their students can take a foreign language. They get to continue the Isles Elementary program of Chinese. I think also at CCPA, those students get to take a Spanish class. And at Isles Middle School, there's a continuity with the Lego team that I think spreads over between the elementary and middle school. As a board member, I'm worried about all of our children. I'm worried about our students at Jefferson. I'm worried about our students at Washington. I'm worried about the students at Franklin, and I'm worried about the students at Grant. And I think that even though we haven't had advocates from those parents, that those parents would all really like a small learning environment for their children. And I think that those parents who, aren't involved as you are in their students' education, care just as much about their students, and they want their students to have a foreign language, and they'd like for their students to have creative learning, and that they would like their students to have a very small learning environment. And so for that reason, although I'm It's very painful to me. I also will be voting to accept the committee's recommendations on both of those two things.
We don't just enjoy these things. These are research-based qualities that should exist in all of the public schools.
Is there any
and
further,
these are models.
is there any further discussion?
Yes, I just want to clarify that I am the advocate for all children in this Springfield School District, and I'm not just picking out CCPA and Isles and Lincoln Magnet, although those schools do affect the economy of the city of Springfield. All of our schools do. We have to realize that we have to provide a quality education for every child that comes into this district, because without that, the city of Springfield will not thrive. So it's not called special interest, it's called educating children. And if you want to go to special interest, it hasn't been that long ago that I know a board member came forward and advocated for a class that their child could take at Springfield High School. And I can say that because I have a child who graduated from Springfield, I have a child who graduated from Southeast, and I have an ex-husband who graduated from Lanphier. So, you know, my loyalties are within the city of Springfield, okay? And so this is not advocating special, this is advocating for kids who need to learn and who the system should not fail. That was the original component, supposedly, of No Child Left Behind. But I fight for all these kids and for each and every student in the district of Springfield, as well as those who are teaching them. But we've got to do the right thing and not do it selfishly, and we've not got to target specific areas. I mean, if you look at the programs that are being cut and the students who are going to be affected, those are not students from the wealthier backgrounds, and not students who have a father who can put them in Lutheran schools and who can afford to take them to Rochester or Chatham or somewhere to be educated. These are our responsibility. And Springfield has got to continue to grow. And the quality of education that we put into the city of Springfield as we develop railroad relocation and all kinds of other things, as we develop the SIU School of Medicine, which is bringing money into this community and jobs into this community. The quality of education that we provide for our students affects who and what will come to this city.
And they won't come here if they don't have options.
Okay, Mrs. Hammer, if there's no further, were you raising your hand? Okay. If there's no further discussion, Mrs. Hammers, if you would please call for a vote, and board members, if you would, again, do this in a similar fashion to the way that we voted on the earlier budget cut reductions.
Stoudemire?
I have a no on the CBRC with exception to item 1. I'm a yes.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please, Mr. Stoudemire?
As far as the whole citizens committee's
Yes.
suggestions, I am a no, except for item 1, I am a yes.
You're a yes on 1. Okay, so I heard you're a no on everything with the exception of number 1.
Yes.
Thank you. White? Aye. Johnson?
No.
Luby? McFarland? I'm sorry, Mr. McFarland? Nay. Nay, thank you. Mueller?
Four.
So what I heard was an
aye on all except number 4, you are a nay. Is that correct, Mrs. Mueller? Yeah, okay. Just one moment, what'd you say? Yeah, okay. Mrs. White, the motion failed with the exception of number 1, CCPA.
Okay, moving on to number 9.5, approval of a resolution to increase athletic fees. Yes, Mrs. Vanderberg?
Dr. Milton, if you could ask Mr. Basco for our next meeting to have a report on the fund balance projection, now that we have some direction on the cuts, I would appreciate that.
Mr. Basco, if we could have some direction on the fund balance projection, now that we have our cuts, we could have that information prior to the next board meeting.
Yeah, that's fine.
True guesstimate. Thank you.
Item number 9.5, Dr. Milton, could you, I've lost my place.
Okay.
Approval of a resolution to increase athletic fees.
Yes, Mr. Sherman? Thank you. Thank you.
Members of the board. Members of the board.
We can't hear you.
Members of the board, we're looking at increases in the athletic fee from $40 at the middle school to a $60 flat fee still. Members of the board.
There we go.
We're looking for an increase in the middle school athletic fee from a $40 flat fee to a $60 flat fee. And at the high school, from a 60 or from a 40 to a 75 for one sport and 100 for multiple sports. This would raise an additional $40-some thousand in revenue.
Is there any discussion?
I do.
Mr. McFarland.
I just have a question. Why do we eliminate one sport prices for high school but not middle school?
There's still a one sport price for high
It's
school.
not seen on this resolution.
It's a $75 for one sport.
Okay. Okay, so, but for middle school, it says limited sports 40 to 60.
That's correct.
So what, there's a single fee
For all sports, it's a flat fee for middle school.
okay, so there's no single sport fee for middle school, it's just 40 to 60 bucks year round.
That's correct.
Okay. So back to the original question, why do we eliminate one sport in high school but not middle school?
The high school, there still is a one sport fee
That's why I'm asking, why do we do that in high school but not middle school?
because more students participate in multiple sports in middle school.
Okay. I yield back for now.
Any further discussion? Mr. McFarland, you, if you yield, do you have anything else? There's no further discussion, so I'm ready to call for the vote.
Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Hammers, would you please call for the vote?
White,
Aye.
Thunberg,
Aye.
Johnson,
Abstain.
Luby,
Aye.
Harlan,
Aye.
Mueller. Yes. Stoudenbach.
Aye.
That is 6 ayes and 1 abstention. Motion passes.
Item number 9.6, approval of a resolution to increase driver's education fees. Dr. Milton?
At this time, we'll call on Mr. Sherman. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Shaver.
I'm sorry, I was trying to control the building here.
That's okay.
Bump up the heat a little bit.
No problem. I try to give you enough time by getting the wrong name.
I apologize, what was it again?
Driver's ed. Resolution for driver's ed.
Let me find it.
Seeking approval for the resolution to increase driver education fees.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Mueller, seconded by Mr. McFarland. Any discussion?
Yes, just a quick question. This does
Mr.
not
Luby?
include low-income children?
No, we're not by law able to do that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Hammers, would you please call for the vote?
Yes, ma'am. Thunderbird?
Aye.
Johnson?
Abstain.
Luby?
Aye.
McFarland? Mueller?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Mueller?
Yes.
You? Stoudemire?
Aye.
White?
Aye.
Check that for us. Give me maybe though.
That is 6 ayes and 1 abstention.
Number 9.7, student discipline. Dr. Milton?
Yes, we had one this evening for the duration of the school year from Southeast High School.
May I have a motion, please? Mr. Stoudemire, second. May I have a second? Second from Mrs. Mueller. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Hammers, would you please call for the vote?
Johnson?
I abstain because I missed the discussion on that one.
Luby?
Aye.
McFarland?
Aye.
Mueller?
Yes.
Stoudemire?
Aye.
White?
Aye.
Thunderbird? Aye. That is 6 ayes and 1 abstention.
Number 10.1, our next regular school board meeting is February 18th at 5:30 p.m., and that one is scheduled to be back in the boardroom. The next Finance Committee meeting is next Monday, February 11th at 5 o'clock in the boardroom. Is that meeting still on, Mrs. Mueller?
I don't think we've decided.
I just remember...
I will not be able to be there, but I'm certainly happy for the meeting to take place, but it doesn't have to either.
Mrs. Johnson and Mrs. Vanderberg, are you planning on attending?
Do we have something to discuss?
I don't know. I saw an email from Ms. Mueller. She couldn't attend, so I wanted to know if we were still having that meeting.
Cancel.
Pardon me?
Cancel.
Perhaps we let Mr. Basco review the fund balance projections and resume back in March.
Ms. Johnson? I think so that there will not be a finance committee meeting next Monday. There's no, when's the next, my ESB has stopped. The next policy committee meeting is when, Mr.
The last
McFarland?
Monday of February, right off the top of my head.
Okay, and there is no more public comment, so we are adjourned.
Thank you.
You're welcome.